20 years ago, underground labyrinths began to appear all over the world. They had many unusual features. In the underground labyrinths, there were monsters that surpassed the power of modern weapons. Also, in the underground labyrinths, one could find magic stones with enormous energy that surpassed modern fuel. In addition, a level system was introduced that made the world feel like a game. Each person could open the system to see their level. When defeating a monster, people gained experience, which increased their level and stats. In addition, skills appeared that could give a person superhuman strength. These skills could be obtained by fulfilling certain conditions. Using this power, many began to defeat monsters and earn a living. These people became known as adventurers. The dark-haired boy was in a D-rank dungeon. It was called Tanagi Dungeon and was on the 15th floor. The boy was being chased by several goblin-like monsters. They were indeed goblins with a level of 120. The dark-haired guy's name was Rin. He was level 194. The guy turned around and noticed that he was surrounded by goblins on both sides, who were already swinging their arms to strike. Rin also swung his sword and struck each of the goblins. The opponents fell to the ground, and the guy was happy that he was finally finished. A system notification came that Rin had gained experience points and increased his level by 1. This sound rang in the boy's head. He was happy about the increase in level. The guy raises his hand and opens the system with one wave. A panel with information appears right in front of him. On one of the panels is written the guy's name. His level is now equal to 195 units. Rin looked at his stats carefully. He put his hand to his chin and sighed. Rin saw that his level was rising quite fast, but he still had a lot of work to do to reach the level of the world's adventurers. The boy recalls that world adventurers were able to reach level 100,000. Such adventurers started their journey more than 20 years ago. It was presumptuous of Rin to try to catch up with world adventurers in just 1 year. Rin thinks. If he's not mistaken, the reward for clearing Tanagi's dungeon should be a 5-level increase. The structure of the dungeon follows one type. It has only one entrance, and it is on the surface. Under the stairs is a fairly large space called the return zone. Also, the gate leading to the dungeon itself is at the bottom. At the bottom of each dungeon is a boss room. If you defeat the boss and take over the dungeon, you can get a reward in the form of a level up. The reward for capturing depends on the difficulty level of the dungeon, and will also increase depending on the number of people. Many adventurers join groups for the sake of the reward for completing the dungeon. Rin thinks that it is much more profitable to repeatedly capture dungeons than to defeat monsters and gain experience. Because the dungeon cannot be re-entered, you must wait a week to re-enter it. Capturing a dungeon counts for all dungeons in the world. If a person captures one dungeon, they will not be able to immediately capture another one due to the cooldown. Usually, they wait a week for the cooldown to occur. The skill, Dungeon Movement, is unique because only Rin has it. When he was a child, a monster escaped from the dungeon and attacked the city. At that time, Rin was in a dangerous situation. All the people were in a panic. They were trying to find a safe place, so they were running around the city, screaming loudly. All the people were waiting for the adventurers to arrive who could protect them. Rin was very small. He and his sister were looking for shelter. But they didn't have time to hide, and the monster was already swinging at them. Rin and his sister fell to the ground. The boy had already covered himself and his sister with his hand, expecting a blow. The boy heard the sound of blows, but felt nothing. He opened his eyes and saw a man in a cloak in front of him, who protected them from the monster. Rin admired the adventurer he saw at that moment. He wanted to become like him. After graduating from high school, Rin qualified as an adventurer. That was when he entered the dungeon for the first time. In dungeons, many aspiring adventurers give up and never try again. When someone first enters a dungeon, they only have a 10% chance of gaining a skill. And when a person gets a skill, then with a small chance he can get a unique skill. The guy noticed that he got 2 skills. He was very happy. The skill, Strengthening the Body, is given to those who have the talent to develop the body. Then the boy thought about why he needed the skill, Dungeon Move. He had never heard of it. The skill, Dungeon Move, is unique, as it has no copy in the world. As the name suggests, it allows you to move freely inside the dungeon. The other aspiring adventurers were amazed by Rin's skill. They asked the guy to show them how his skill works. Also, many guilds invited the boy to join them. Many adventurers saw that Rin was special and different from other adventurers, so they wanted to get him. The adventurer Shin Kazami also thought the boy was special. He extended his hand to the boy and told him that they were people with special abilities, and that they were recruiting similar people to form a new guild. Shin Kazami told the boy that they wanted to overtake the top guilds that had existed for years. Shin Kazami also had unique abilities and gathered people with the same unique abilities. Although the idea of overtaking other guilds was not so interesting to Rin, he wanted to rise up with his own strength alone. In this concept, their ideas were similar, and so he joined Kazami's guild. The adventurer had the ability Underground Movement Level 1, which allowed movement up to 5 meters. The casting speed for moving 1 meter is 10 seconds and only Rin can move. This skill could not be used for support, let alone in a face-to-face fight. On the other hand, Shin Kazami had a unique skill called Lightning Strike. He could easily manipulate lightning. At level 1, he could match up with 10 newbies. The other adventurers in the guild also had incredible skills that allowed them to easily clear even the most difficult dungeons. In less than a week, Rin's skill was recognized as the worst. After that, rumors began to circulate about Rin's uselessness. Shin Kamazi met Rin and asked him if everything was okay. The frequent ridicule made the boy feel awkward. Rin decided to leave the guild if he did not see significant progress, but during this time he was able to raise the skill Dungeon Movement to level 2. As a result, the casting time was reduced from 10 to 8 seconds. When Rin went to tell Shin Kazami about his departure, he overheard a conversation. Someone was asking Shin Kazami why he couldn't tell Rin something directly. The person wanted Rin to leave the guild. Rin was around the corner. He was Shin Kazami and the girl who was telling him that they had already spread rumors about the guy being useless. She asks if there is any point in making the guy leave them by spreading such rumors. Shin Kazami says that it makes sense. He says that they are gaining fame as a guild that is rapidly gaining strength. He believes that their image is an important foundation for everything. Rin couldn't believe what he heard. Shin Kazami said that if they mercilessly drive the boy away, it might have an undesirable effect on their guild's reputation. He wants Rin to decide to leave their guild on his own. At that moment, Rin understood everything. Only the guild members knew about his powers, and they were the ones spreading the rumors. They had no choice but to drive the guy away. It was that simple. Rin didn't want to blame the guild for everything. It was true that the boy was too weak for this guild. The next day, Rin announced his departure. Shin Kazami began to play with the boy and deny his departure. But Rin got tired of it and soon left. It was then that Rin decided that he would level up alone. At that moment, another guild invited him. Unfortunately, the guy did not remember its name, but it was very famous. The new guild wanted to profit from Rin in the future, but he decided to refuse the offer because he no longer wanted to have any comrades. Even when Rin was looked down upon, he didn't want to give up. He only wanted to reach the level of the adventurer who had once saved him and his sister. First of all, the guy believed in the power of the skill, Dungeon Movement. He believed that the skill was not useless. The guy believed that many things become stronger when you reach level 10. The guy believed that this would definitely happen. Rin decides that after the battle with the goblins, he needs to continue on his way. He goes down to the bottom floor of the Tanagi dungeon and meets the boss, a two-tailed beast that is level 150. Rin easily deals with the monster because it is the third time he encounters it. This time, the difference in levels was great. It was quite easy for him to defeat the monster. Rin receives a system notification that his level has increased by 5. The boy sighs. He opens the system panels and moves his hand from side to side, looking at the information. Then the boy increases his level. The system notifies that the skill level Dungeon Movement has been increased to 10. The system also notifies that the conditions for using the skill will be changed. The guy thinks about what might change. He assumes that it will be either the distance of the transfer, or the casting time, or maybe the area of effect. Previously, transfer was only possible in the dungeon where the caster is located, and now it will be possible in the dungeon where the caster's foot has stepped. Rin stands in bewilderment for a few minutes. He expected that the maximum distance of movement would be unlimited, or the casting speed would be 0 seconds. He also assumed that the area of effect would extend to other people. Rin sighed and realized that everything he had thought of would never happen because it was impossible. The boy wonders if he can move to the dungeon he was in. He took into account that the dungeons are more than 1 kilometer apart. Rin thinks that it is pointless to move to such places. Then he decides that he needs to move on. The boy receives a signal. He understands that somewhere nearby he is in danger. The boy moves forward as the signal informs that the magic of movement for return has been activated. Rin is going to collect the magic stones as quickly as possible to exchange them later. Rin stops and wonders if the skill will level up significantly at level 20 next time. Rin raised his hands. He didn't know how many years it would take him, but he had no choice but to do his best. The boy slapped his hands on his face. Rin came out of the dungeon. He really wanted to go home. He walked across a bridge, a subway, and then down the street until he reached an E-rank dungeon called the Purple Sound Dungeon. Rin recalled that this was the first dungeon he visited when he was a newbie. The reward in this dungeon was 1 level, and the monsters in this dungeon were very weak. He had been in it several times. The guy thinks about going into it one more time, but he can't, because he still has to wait for a week's rollback. Then the guy thinks that he can try, because he's back to the beginning. Rin approaches the girl who is the manager of the Purple Sound Dungeon. The girl extends her hand and says that she has confirmed Rin's power. The girl gives the map to the guy. He immediately takes it in his hands. The girl also tells that the map contains the name and difficulty of the dungeons the guy has visited. All information is recorded upon entering and exiting the dungeon. The dungeon manager thanks the guy for his cooperation and asks him to be careful. Rin goes inside. He sees the return zone of the Purple Sound Dungeon. All dungeons have a return zone. This area becomes the return point when moving out of the dungeon. Behind the gates with seals is the dungeon itself. The guy tries to pass the magical gates, but he crashes into them because they do not let him through. The boy rubs the back of his head. He looks at the gate, thinking that he had previously assumed that he would not be able to pass. He lowered his head and sighed, as he knew that the weekly cooldown had not yet happened. Without this cooldown, Rin would not be able to gain as much experience as he wanted. Apparently, the previous adventurers thought the same. They tried to destroy the wall near the gate to make a passage. No matter how powerful their magic was, they couldn't even scratch it. Rin then thinks that an improved version of his skill, transfer to the dungeon where the caster has set foot, will help him. Rin thinks he has found a solution to the problem. He wonders if the skill will be able to transport him inside the dungeon. Rin thinks that he can enter this gate after all. Although it is impossible, he should try, because he has nothing to lose. Rin understands that he needs to imagine the place after entering the gate. The distance is 1 meter. The activation time is 1 meter and 2 seconds. The guy closes his eyes and tries to move. Then he opens his eyes and realizes that he was able to move. The guy is stunned. He can't believe that he did it. Rin found himself inside a dungeon. He can't believe it. The guy understands that now he doesn't have to wait for a cooldown. In other words, his leveling will improve significantly. The guy stops himself and tries to calm down. The guy understands that everything is fine. There is no point in defeating monsters for a long time now. He can quickly capture all the dungeons. Then, Rin thinks that it is still too early to rejoice. He decides that he needs to take over the dungeon first. He moves forward. An hour later, Rin has dealt with all the monsters. He receives a system notification that the reward for capturing the dungeon is a level increase of 1. Rin chuckles quietly, then raises his hands and screams in delight. He realizes that this is all true. The guy can't imagine how he could have gotten so lucky. Now Rin will be able to capture D and E rank dungeons multiple times. This is much more effective than defeating A rank dungeon monsters. Because of this, the efficiency of his leveling will increase. Now the guy knows it. After all this, Rin conquered the Purple Sound Dungeon again and again, and by sunset he had reached the 9th floor. In the evening, Rin returned home. He didn't know what was better, to continue leveling up or to return home. Rin quietly opened the door. He announced that he had returned home. Suddenly, a ladle almost flew at the guy. It stopped right next to his face. Rin screamed in fear. He was met by a dark-haired girl who pointed at the boy with a ladle and said that he was too late. Rin folded his arms and began to apologize to Hana. He told his sister that he got carried away with capturing the dungeon. Hana points to the table with food and says that she prepared everything for the guy. Rin sits down at the table and starts eating. Rin smiles and says that Hana's cooking is very good. He convinces the girl that her food is the best in the world. Hana looks at Rin with displeasure. The girl asks what happened to the guy. She thinks the guy is behaving terribly. Rin spits out the food. Hana asks if something good happened to her brother. Rin says he doesn't understand what the girl is talking about. He thinks it's not unusual for him to be back so late. Then Rin says that something good did happen after all. He says that he was very lucky. Hana asks if it has anything to do with the dungeon. The guy replies that his efforts have paid off, so to speak. Hana smiles and says that she is very happy for her brother. Hana is well aware that Rin has no talent for conquering dungeons. That's why she always worried about her brother. Hannah still looked at her brother with a smile and said that she was very happy that everything was fine. The guy was sincerely grateful to Hannah for her care and support. A few years ago, their parents had an accident abroad and went missing. Since then, they lived on the money that their parents left for their children. It was a small amount, it would not have been enough for the rest of their lives. That's why the guy makes a living by conquering dungeons, although E and D ranked dungeons are not that profitable. But Hannah continues to support Rin as an adventurer. He can't let his sister down. Anna winks and asks if her brother is strong enough to challenge a C-rank dungeon, since he's doing so well. The girl immediately suggested a difficulty of rank C, but there Rin needs to be at least level 500. Even if he pumps up as before, it will take at least a year. Now Rin can level up much more efficiently. He can capture as many dungeons as he wants. The guy is about to say something, but then suddenly stops. He stops himself. The girl looks at the boy questioningly. Rin feels that he shouldn't tell Hannah about this. A new power that allows him to bypass an obstacle that hinders all adventurers in the world. If this becomes known, the people around him will not like it. Because of anger and hatred, they may attack the guy. Even though Hannah is his sister, the guy still decides that it is better to keep everything a secret. Hannah notices her brother's thoughtfulness, so she asks if he's okay. Rin replies that he is fine. He says that it's just that, unfortunately, he won't be able to conquer a C-rank dungeon anymore. Hannah laughs and says she knows about it. The guy wonders why the girl is asking then. The guy and his sister then talk about how each other's day went. The next day, Rin looked at the dungeon's characteristics. Many of them were near his house. He thought that if he was going to use the leveling efficiency, the Tanagi dungeon would be the best. Rin can capture it in about 2 hours. The reward for capturing is 5 levels. In a day, he can capture about 5 times, that is, 29 levels. But Tanagi's dungeon has a lot of resources and adventurers, so there is always someone in the return zone. Other adventurers can see him moving into the dungeon. And in the Purple Sound dungeon, there are a few people, but the rewards are also less. The guy thinks that when it comes to this, the Dream Dungeon is the best option. This dungeon has a recommended capture level of 120. The difficulty level of the dungeon is D rank. The minimum and maximum capture level is from level 100 to 500. However, the floors in the dungeon are wide, and it will take about 3 hours to capture, the reward for capturing 5 levels. In addition, the difficulty in it is a little higher. The main resources that drop in this dungeon are magic stones. On the other hand, there are a lot of monsters there, and they drop much less experience, and the resources of the labyrinth are not very expensive. In other words, it is not a very popular dungeon among adventurers. Rin thinks that this is the perfect place. Rin heads to the D-rank dungeon of Dreams. He goes inside and thinks about how it wasn't as popular as he thought. Before passing through the magical barrier, the boy turns around and looks around. He doesn't notice anyone, so he starts using his dungeon transfer skill. The transfer distance is 1 meter. The casting time will take 2 seconds. The guy moves inside. Rin walks forward, remembering that he had entered this dungeon before. If he was not mistaken, it was about 3 months ago. The main enemies that appear in this dungeon are goblins, kobolds, and grey wolves, not very dangerous opponents. The guy remembers that he got his favorite dagger, the Dream Dagger, in this dungeon. It's a great weapon with an attack equal to 60 units. He got it because Rin defeated the boss for the first time alone. Rin was hiding around the corner. He noticed the movement of monsters nearby. The wolves were moving towards him very slowly. Last time, Rin had a hard time dealing with the grey wolves, but this time, the difference between their levels is huge. They are now weak opponents. Rin brandished the dagger and thought that with this system in the dungeons, the main thing is to level up. About 3 hours later, the guy found himself in front of a huge gate. The gate opened with a creaking sound. The boy notices that no one is fighting the boss. He thinks that he is very lucky. Rin chuckles and thinks that this time he would rather fight the boss without being distracted by the remaining monsters. The Dream Dungeon boss, Harpy, appears right in front of Rin. She sings a sleepy song, but if the resistance parameter is high, the song's effect does not work. The guy thinks that the most annoying thing is that the Harpy can only be attacked when it is on the ground, but this time Rin took the appropriate measures. The boy swings his weapon to use the explosive stone. This stone explodes when hit hard. It costs 2,000 yen. The guy throws an explosive rock at the Harpy and it hits. The boss gets angry. She flies straight to Rin again to attack him. As the harpy flies towards the boy, Rin takes out a dagger and stabs the boss. The boy was waiting for the right moment. The harpy falls to the ground, and the guy gets a system notification that he has successfully captured the dungeon. His reward, a level increase of 5 units. The guy is happy. Rin decides that he will conquer as many dungeons as he can in one day, but then he turns around and remembers that he needs to collect magic stones. The harpy stone costs 5,000 yen, and the magic stone costs 10,000 yen. The guy understands that even if you subtract the cost of the explosive stone, he will still be in the black. The guy hears the sound the system makes. He understands that it's time for him to go to the return zone. The guy teleports and finds himself behind a door that leads to a dungeon. He laughs and decides to continue leveling up this way. Rin conquered the dream dungeon 2 more times. After that, the boy looked at his stats on the panel and saw that he had risen 15 levels. He thinks that this is an incredible speed. After being branded as trash with a useless skill, Rin was able to awaken a unique skill that only he can use in the entire world. The guy decides that he will become faster and stronger than everyone in this world. The guy's name was Rin. He has a unique skill called Dungeon Move. Thanks to it, the guy can ignore the dungeon cooldown, which is a huge problem for all adventurers in the world. Rin managed to raise the skill Dungeon Movement to level 10 and the skill Body Strengthening to level 3. The boy thought that he had raised his level quite well. A day ago, he was at level 194. The guy decides that he should spend 200 experience points. He is upset because he cannot improve the skill Move to the Dungeon. The guy then smiles as he thinks about how he can upgrade his body strengthening skill. This skill will increase his attack power, stamina, and speed. In close combat, these are important stats. Rin swipes his finger across the screen. He has decided what exactly he will spend these points on. The boy increases his inventory. He thinks that with the inventory, he will be able to carry more items. He will not have to carry all the items with him all the time. Behind him, the boy hears his sister's voice, which announces that the food is ready and that the boy should go eat. Rin shouts that she is already on her way. For the next 4 days, Rin did not spare himself. He constantly passed the Dungeon of Dreams. Rin once again headed to the dungeon. He received a system notification that the reward for capturing the dungeon was a 5-level increase. He had received this message several times. The guy opened the system screen again to see his result after completing the dungeon multiple times. The guy thinks that it was already good, but now he has too much. He has raised a whole 150 levels. The guy thinks that if this is really true, then reaching level 100,000 is not far away. But big changes happened while Rin was trying. It all came back the next day. The next day, when the boy came to the dungeon, he saw a huge number of adventurers at the entrance. It was Saturday. In addition to the adventurers, there were office workers and students standing near the entrance to the dungeon. The guy assumed that on weekends there were quite a lot of people near the dungeon. Rin's dungeon move skill can be considered a scam. If any adventurers see Rin using it, it will be a big problem. Rin decides that he needs to be more careful. He will need to take a good look around before using his skill. The boy descended to the bottom floor of the dream dungeon. He was already on the 5th floor. Rin thought that he was keeping up a good pace in the dungeon, but he still thought that he needed to speed up. Suddenly, Rin heard a sound off to the side. A large number of adventurers were running away from someone. They were shouting that they had to speed up or someone would catch up with them. The adventurers ran to the exit. One of them shouted that there were too many monsters and that they would not be able to cope with them. They thought that they had to survive. The guy heard someone's voice asking for help. Rin decides to use all his speed and help a man in trouble. The guy runs to help and opens his eyes wide because he sees a girl with a staff who is surrounded by wolves. Rin realized that the girl was a mage because she was holding a staff in her hands. The guy swings his sword and thinks at that moment that it is unlikely that mages go to the dungeon alone. Rin speculates that the escaped group of adventurers used the girl as bait. The wolves practically attacked the girl. The girl clutched her staff in her hands and screamed. At that moment, Rin appears and strikes all the wolves. The girl opens her eyes and tries to understand what is happening. The girl sees Rin, who turns around and says that everything will be fine. She becomes embarrassed and widens her eyes in surprise. Rin rushes forward and hits the wolves very quickly. All the defeated wolves fall to the ground, and the girl still looked at the guy and thought that he was incredible. The guy swings his weapon again and strikes. He shouts that this wolf is the last one. The guy opens his inventory and puts his weapon in there. Then he turns around and sees the girl looking at him in shock. Rin extends his hand to the girl and asks if she is okay. He was asking if the girl was hurt. Rin looked at the girl more closely and thought that she was pretty, even though she was younger than him. The girl blushes sharply and says that she is fine. She convinces the guy that she just fell from fear. She thanks the guy for his help. Rin helps the girl up. The girl grabs his hand and rises, but suddenly loses her balance and falls on the boy. The guy holds the girl's hand. They are very close to each other, so the girl blushes. Because the girl was so embarrassed, she pulled away from the guy. Rin didn't understand what had just happened. The guy assumed that the girl didn't like him. Rin rubs the back of his head and apologizes to the girl. He says that he decided to help the girl because she was screaming. He didn't know that he was so unpleasant to the girl. The girl waves her hands and says that it is not about that at all. She says that she does not dislike the guy. On the contrary, she thinks that the guy is too amazing. The girl becomes more serious. She smiles and thanks the guy again for helping her. The girl bows and thanks him again. She then lifts her head and says that her name is Kasai Yui. She tells me that she will be graduating from high school next year. Since she was 17, she has been an adventurer and visits dungeons on weekends. The boy sighs when he realizes that the girl is 17 years old. He says that the girl became an adventurer a year before him. Rin became an adventurer instead of going to university. Then the guy looks at the girl and says that it is strange anyway that she is alone in the dungeon. The guy asks why she is alone. The girl lowers her head and chuckles. She does not rush to answer. A minute later, Kasai reveals that she actually joined the temporary group, and they then went underground together, encountering a huge pack of wolves. The adventurers left the girl as bait and ran away. Kasai nods and says that's exactly how it happened. Rin says that's exactly what he thought. He says that the girl was a victim of the group. He says that the other adventurers should be held criminally responsible for something like this. The boy turns around and says that they need to continue their journey. He wants to finish the dungeon quickly. Kasai asks if they can go together. The boy agrees. Rin and Kasai approach a huge gate. The girl looks at the gate and is very worried. Kasai turns to Rin and asks if he really wants to challenge the boss. Rin wipes his dagger and says that's why he went down into the dungeon. He says that it's the fastest way to leave the dungeon. He asks what's wrong. The girl suddenly raises her voice and says that everything is fine. She thanks the guy again for saving her. Kasai asks if it is okay to go to the boss together, especially if the guy has fought many monsters. The gate opens, Kasai gets scared, and Rin says that their group can handle the boss. The boy steps forward. He holds up 2 fingers and asks the girl not to worry. He asks who the girl thinks he is. Kasai looks at the boy in surprise. Kasai ponders the boy's question. Then Rin remembers that he forgot to introduce himself. The guy turns around and rubs the back of his head in embarrassment. The guy says his first and last name. Kasai says she knows someone with the same name. She asks if the guy doesn't mind if she calls him Rin for short. Rin replies that he doesn't mind. The girl thanks the guy and says that he can call her Yui. The guy says that it's nice to meet you. At that moment, a harpy awakens behind the guy and the girl, which begins to make loud sounds. Rin takes out a dagger and smiles at the girl. When the harpy attacks the boy, he swings the dagger and stabs it. Kasai looks at the boy in amazement and claps her hands. She didn't think the boy would defeat the harpy alone. Rin receives a system notification that he has received a reward for conquering the dungeon, a 5-level increase. Meanwhile, Kasai is amazed and happy that they were able to defeat the boss. Kasai thanks the boy and says that he was the one who was able to reach level 85. Rin's mouth drops in surprise. He asks the girl again. He couldn't believe that she really was level 80. The guy looked at the girl. He noticed the robe and the staff. The guy couldn't believe that the girl could go so far at such a low level. He thought that the girl was a very strong magician. Rin addresses Yui. The girl looks at the boy with a question. The boy asks if Yui is really a healer. The girl smiles and gives a positive answer. Rin turns away and thinks about how there are so many different types of adventurers. Tank, healer, swordsman, mage. But healers usually become at higher levels. The fact that she can already heal is a huge rarity for healers. The guy gets a notification that he needs to move to the return zone. The guy looks at his hand in shock and says that it's time for them to go. The guy also remembers that they still need to collect all the magic stones. Kasai and Rin return back using the return zone. The boy and girl sigh at the fact that they were able to return safely. Kasai then turns around and notices familiar faces. The man said he wondered what would happen to the girl they left behind. The girl in the same group said they had no other choice. And the third guy asked how they would explain everything to the manager. The guy finds it strange that 5 people came in and 4 came out. Rin approaches the group. He stares at the adventurers while Kasai holds him by the jacket. The girl tries to get Rin's attention, but he interrupts her and says that he will handle it himself. He asks the girl to stay behind him. The whole company turns around and looks at Kasai and Rin in surprise. The adventurers look at the girl in shock. They thought she was already dead, as they left her with a pack of wolves. The boy remembers how the girl asked him to save her. He asks how she managed to survive. Their leader demands that the boy shut up. Rin turns around and notices that the girl is scared. It seems to him that the girl is still in shock after what happened. The leader of the adventurers looks at the girl, and it seems to him that the girl is already okay. He tries to convince the girl that they were worried about her. Rin puts out her hand, shielding the girl, and demands that the adventurers not come closer to them. The man asks who Rin is. Rin replies that it doesn't matter who he is. He says that Yui has already told him everything about them, including how the adventurers ran away from a pack of wolves in fear and left the girl as bait. Rin says that there is no use hiding it. He decides that he needs to report it to the dungeon manager. The adventurer screams and says that the boy is lying. She says that if the boy tells everything, at best they will lose their adventurer license. The adventurer leader makes a fist and then takes his sword out of its sheath. One of the adventurers asks what their leader is doing. The leader points his sword at Rin and says he had no choice but to silence him. He says he's already broken the law. O does not want to lose everything he has achieved. The leader turns to his group and tells them to prepare for battle as well. He convinces them that they must get rid of any witnesses before the adventurers arrive. Rin asks if they are really willing to go that far for this. The man with the sword tries to find out if the boy understands that he is an adventurer too. He can gain fame, power, and wealth just by conquering the dungeon. The man says that once he has experienced this pleasure, it is harder to give it up. Rin lowers his head and says that he understands everything. The adventurer smirks and says that the boy is more receptive than expected. He says that if the boy lays down his arms and apologizes to them, they might spare him. Rin refuses. He says that he found their conversation a waste of time. He says that he wants to end everything as quickly as possible. The adventurer raises his sword again and asks what this all means. Behind Rin, Yui tries to stop the boy, but Rin says that everything will be fine. Rin doesn't know the exact level of the adventurers, but he speculates that if they escaped from normal wolves, they won't pose much of a problem to him. All the adventurers take out their weapons and prepare for battle. Rin stands unarmed. The girl is amazed that Rin is going to fight with his bare hands. The man says that the guy is not very smart. Rin gets their attention, and the man asks what the guy wants to say. Rin asks if the man is really so angry that he has forgotten how to think. He wonders if the man thinks about who was able to deal with the wolf pack. Flames start to blaze around the boy. The man gets scared and looks at Rin in shock. Rin asks if the man has figured it out. Rin asks if the man really doesn't understand it. The man demands that the boy be quiet. He shouts to all his comrades to attack. The girl named Ami launches a fireball. The fireball flies straight at Rin, but she stands there and does nothing. A second later, the guy mocks the girl's abilities. He raises his hand and deflects the fireball. He lost 20 health points. Ami's mouth drops open in surprise. She can't believe that the fireball did so little damage. Most of all, she can't believe that Rin just blocked her fireball. Rin jumps up and says it's his turn. He's going to attack the adventurers. The leader of the adventurers gives a command to a guy named Ryo. The guy obeys and steps forward. Ryo puts up a shield in front of himself. At this moment, Rin breaks away and moves towards him to attack. Ryu says that Rin is not the smartest person. Ryu realizes that Rin is going to attack the tank directly. He decides to use the deflection. Rin realizes that Ryu is using the skill Reflect Strike. This skill consumes a lot of mana depending on the strength of the blow. Rin screams and breaks through the guy's shield with one hand. Ryu looks at the boy, dumbfounded. He can't understand how this could happen. Rin says it's just a difference in strength. He convinces the boy that his mana isn't enough to withstand even one blow. Brian says that the boy's defense is now full of holes. Ryu kneels down and can't believe that this could happen. The adventurer leader points his hand at the boy and asks how this can be. He says that Rin came to the dungeon to mock the weak. The man saw that Rin is monstrously strong. Rin smiles and says that he does not do such things. He asks the adventurers to hurry. The other adventurers move towards him to attack. The adventurers try to strike the boy, but they fail because Rin simply dodges. After a few attacks, Rin counterattacks. The adventurers fall backwards, and the girl from their team screams in fear. Rin turns to the girl and asks if she wants to continue. The girl from the adventurer team raises her hands and says that they have lost. She accepts defeat. All the adventurers run away. Rin and Kasai came out of the dungeon. Rin exhaled and said that he was finally able to do it. Rin walks home with Kasai. He rubs the back of his head and says that their capture was easy enough. But the police and the Adventurers Association really wore him out. Kasai asks what will happen to those adventurers who left her to be eaten by the wolves. Rin says that according to the dungeon manager, they will be severely punished. At the very least, they will have their adventurer license revoked. Rin and Kasai stop for a few minutes. The girl bows and thanks the guy again for helping her. Kasai says that if Rin hadn't helped her, something terrible could have happened. Rin smiles and says that it wasn't hard for him to help her. Rin raises her hand and tells the girl to prepare more thoroughly from now on before going into the dungeon. Also, the girl should choose her party more carefully. Kasai lowers his head and says that he will do so. Then the girl remembers something and suddenly looks up. She asks if the guy can give her his contact information. The guy doesn't immediately understand why the girl needs his phone number. Kasai says that she has long wanted to meet an adventurer she can rely on. In addition, the girl wanted to properly thank the guy. The guy still agrees and hands over his phone to write down the number. Kasai blushes and clutches her phone to her chest. She thanks him and laughs. Rin blushes too, because he hasn't been given such a carefree smile in a long time. Then Kasai notices that her train has already arrived. She says goodbye to the guy and says that they will see each other again. Rin the guy waves to the girl and also says that they will see each other again soon. The guy waits for the right train and gets on it to go home. The guy thinks that level 399 is still not enough for him. The next day, Rin comes to the Purple Sound dungeon again. The guy goes through the dungeon several times and gets a reward for capturing the dungeon, an increase of 1 level. Rin returned home to check his stats. He was level 400. His health had also increased to 3,240. The guy raised his hand to swipe the screen and upgrade the skill Dungeon Movement to level 11. The system notifies the guy that he has successfully upgraded the skill. Rin notices that the travel distance has increased by 2.5 times, but he only uses the skill to enter the dungeon. Therefore, the guy does not see much of a difference. Then an interesting idea comes to the guy's mind, which he decides to try the next day. The next day, Rin went to the dream dungeon. He notices that the dungeon manager has changed. The guy approaches the gate and uses the move. He manages to find himself inside the dungeon. Rin decides that he will do it because he can move between dungeons. Usually, it takes some time to go down, but if he can reduce the time, then this efficiency of his pumping will increase. Rin thought about this once in the past. His maximum movement distance was 5, and after that, he didn't have enough mana. In the end, he realized that there was a possibility of falling due to the size of the floors. It was impossible for the boy. But now that he has become stronger, he should be able to do it. Rin kneels down and guesses that the distance between floors is 10 meters. He is going to set the teleportation distance to 10 meters. The guy gives himself a command that it's time to start. He uses the skill Move to the Dungeon. The guy successfully moves to the Dream Dungeon on the 2nd floor. Rin is very happy that he succeeded. Now he thinks that he should try to move 50 meters at once. The guy was able to move 5 floors down at once. Rin goes to the floor, getting rid of enemies. He receives a system notification that he has received a reward for capturing the dungeon, a 5-level increase. Rin is happy that he was able to capture the dungeon in just 10 minutes. Previously, it took him at least an hour. Now his leveling will speed up several times. He decides to go for a second round. Then the guy falls to his knees and breathes heavily because he does not have enough mana to use the skill Move to the Dungeons, although its amount is equal to 800 units. But in one circle, he spends 450 units of mana. The guy suddenly gets up from the ground. He remembers that there are magic potions that can restore mana, but they are very expensive. The guy curses. He can't think of any other option. The guy then wonders what would happen if he lowered his mana consumption. He decides he should try it. Rin descends and is going to set the movement distance to 2 meters this time. He uses the skill Dungeon Movement. 4 seconds later, the guy feels like the ground beneath his feet has disappeared. He flies straight down. The guy manages to group himself and land on the ground. Rin was happy with what he had done. He had reduced his mana consumption by 5 times. Now the boy could easily conquer dungeons 7 or even 8 times. After another dungeon capture, the guy received the notification from the system. He received a reward for capturing the dungeon, a 5-level increase. Rin rubs the back of his head and thinks about how little mana he has left. From now on, he decides to stick to the same strategy. As a result, the guy was able to make 14 visits to the dungeon and get a lot of rewards. The guy stood in front of the screen and looked at his results. He was already at level 470th. He had accumulated 7,000 points. The guy decided to look at his new skills. The guy looked at what he needed to increase his skill level. To increase his magic power, he needed 200 points. To restore his magic power, he also needed 200 points. Rin decides that from the next day onwards, he will level up much more efficiently. At that moment, Rin didn't know that the next time he took over the dream dungeon would be his last. The guy went to capture the dungeon again. He came across a boss on the way. The guy swung his sword to strike. Counting this time, the boy had captured the dungeon 17 times in one day. He was once again trying to defeat the harpy that was located on the bottom floor of the dream dungeon. The guy receives a system notification that he has received a reward for capturing a dungeon, a 5-level increase. The system tells the guy that he has captured the dungeon the maximum number of times. He gets a bonus, a 15-level increase. The system tells him that the next time he captures a dungeon, the guy will not receive a reward. Rin is taken aback by the latest message from the system. The next second, the boy receives a notification that he's received the title of Dungeon Conqueror. Rin goes to the return zone and returns. He rubs the back of his head and thinks that no one knows that dungeons have a capturing limit. The boy decides that it is better for him not to tell anyone about this. He also remembers that he received a title. Rin opened the screen with the characteristics again. He saw that the title Dungeon Master can only be obtained by conquering a dungeon completely. By capturing a certain number of dungeons, you can get additional bonuses. Rin stares at the screen, dumbfounded. He realizes that he can get bonuses for conquering 10 dungeons. He finds it difficult. But the guy is happy that he now has a goal. In any case, he decides to thank the Dream Dungeon for giving him the opportunity to level up. The guy returns home. The next morning, when it was already sunny outside, the boy comes out of his room and yawns. Rin meets Hannah, who is happy that her brother finally woke up. The boy says that he fell asleep without having time to spend all his experience points. Hannah is angry with the guy. She says that no matter how many times she woke the guy up, he never woke up. The girl thought that the guy died. Rin assumes that he was very tired last night. That's why he slept so soundly. Rin turns her head and notices a table covered with a huge amount of delicious food. The guy is amazed and asks if the girl really prepared a normal breakfast. Hannah rubs her eyes to stop the tears and says that it's all leftovers from last night's dinner. She prepared all the dishes with such heaviness. Hannah is upset that Rin did not finish the meal. Rin realizes that the girl's tears are fake. Rin apologizes and says he'll eat it all. He sits down at the table and starts eating. Hannah turns to her brother and says that since he's so tired, he could take a day off every now and then. Hannah asks if the guy is busy at the moment. Rin replies that he is not busy. Then he remembers that he is going to the dungeon later. Hannah raises her index finger and asks if her brother can hear her. She tells him to at least take some time to rest sometimes. Rin replies that he heard his sister, so he will do so. Rin is embarrassed that his sister cares about him so much. The girl says that in that case, the boy will go shopping with her, as a porter. Rin takes back his words. He suddenly lost the desire to go shopping with his sister. Rin and Hannah headed to the mall. The girl walked along the alley and showed the guy various clothing stores. Hannah and Rin sat down together on a bench to have a snack. The girl was very happy about the delicious food. Hannah turns to her brother and asks him to share his ice cream with her. The guy thinks about it and then agrees. In the end, the girl eats almost half of the ice cream. The guy looks at the girl, dumbfounded. And Hannah says that it can't be helped that he had delicious ice cream too. She holds out her ice cream and says that the guy can try it. Suddenly, Kasai approaches them. She turns to Hannah and asks what they are doing together. Rin and Hannah immediately recognize Yui. Rin asks her sister if she really knows Kasai. The girl replies that they go to the same high school. She then asks how the boy met the girl. Rin tells about a girl he met in the dungeon the other day. Kasai says she's sorry. She didn't mean to interrupt Rin and Hannah. Kasai becomes embarrassed and looks away when she says that she hasn't thought about what kind of relationship Hannah and Rin are in. She says that they are a very beautiful couple. Rin and Hannah look at the girl, dumbfounded, who got it all wrong. The boy asks Kasai to stop. He remembers what the girl said about a friend with the same last name as him. He says it was Hannah. Kasai's mouth drops open in surprise. She doesn't understand everything right away. She covers her mouth with her hands and says that they are in a student marriage. Rin is stunned. Hannah sighs and says that Kasai always has a lot of guesses. Rin is not surprised by the fact that Kasai is always like this. Rin, Hannah, and Kasai go to a coffee shop. They all sit at the same table. Kasai lowered her head and began to apologize to the boy and girl again. She didn't know that they were brother and sister. Rin and Hannah say that they are not mad at the girl at all. Hannah laughs and says that it was funny to watch. Kasai says that she is ashamed of her arguments. Rin notes to herself that the girl has an S-rank temperament. When the boys are brought their ice cream, Kasai apologizes again. Kasai asks if the boy really won't have ice cream. She says she's been too much trouble. Rin says that the girl didn't really ruin their outing. He convinces the girl to eat her ice cream. He asks her to consider it as thanks for taking care of Hannah. Kasai says that in that case, he won't refuse. Rin watches her sister and wonders how she can eat so much. The girl licks her lips. Suddenly, Anna stands up from her seat and asks if her brother knew that dessert is the only thing girls can eat forever. He remembers how they were eating ice cream on the bench not long ago. Rin decides to take a sip of coffee. At that moment, he thinks about the fact that the girl has 2 stomachs. Otherwise, there is no other answer to the question of how she fits so much food. The boy takes a sip of strong coffee and freezes, as it was very bitter, at this moment. Kasai asks what school the boy attended. Hannah answers that Rin did attend their school for a while. Kasai blushes. Kasai smiles and says that in that case, he will call the guy Rin. The guy agrees. Hannah then asks Yui why she doesn't come shopping with them. Kasai hesitantly asks if they can really take her along. Rin asks Kasai not to worry. The boy raises his hand and says that Hannah's shopping is usually a lot of trouble, so extra help would be very welcome. The boy thinks that this way he can get rid of the problems. Hannah and Kasai look at the boy with disdain. Hannah asks what the boy is saying, and Kasai hopes that the boy is just joking. Rin does not understand why the girls suddenly became gloomy. Rin was walking around the shops with Kasai and Hannah. Hannah kept stopping to look at things and was amazed at how cute the clothes were. Hannah was showing Rin 2 outfits and asking which one she would look better in. At the same time, Kasai was looking at a necklace that she thought was beautiful. Kasai noticed that everything in the store was from the new season. Rin noticed that the girls left him behind. He thought about what he should do. The guy decides to go get a drink. Rin goes to the drink machine. He puts in a coin and chooses a soda. A can of soda falls down and a guy picks it up. The guy opens the can and it sprays soda all over him, causing Rin to have to go to the bathroom to clean her clothes. Rin walks back and rubs the back of his head, thinking about how he was a little late. The guy comes back and notices Kasai alone with some guys. He doesn't see Hannah anywhere. Rin looks over and sees one of the boys asking Kasai why she is alone in the mall. The girl tries to leave, saying that she has something to do. But she's interrupted by another boy asking her to play with him. He says it will be fun. Kasai doesn't have time to answer because Rin appears right in front of her. The boys immediately become alarmed. Rin stares at the boys and then apologizes and says that Kasai came with him. The girl is amazed by the guy's behavior. The strangers turn around and leave. They turn around one last time and wonder what's wrong with Rin. They decide that it's best to leave. Rin reflects on how this time was much easier than in the dungeon with the adventurers. Rin apologizes to Yui. He says he didn't mean to take so long. Kasai says he doesn't have to apologize. She thinks she should apologize since Rin has helped her several times already. Rin remembers her sister while looking at Kasai and puts her hand on the girl's head. The girl is embarrassed and looks up. She asks what the boy is doing. Rin immediately removes her hand and apologizes. Rin hopes the girl won't be mad at him. He says he's sorry. Kasai starts waving his hands and says she doesn't mind at all. The girl says she actually liked it. Kasai blushes when she notices that the guy is listening to her very attentively. Suddenly, Hannah appears. She laughs and says that she is surprised. Rin and Kasai quickly turn around, looking at Hannah. Hannah had an ice cream in her hand. She covered her mouth with her hand and said that she didn't know about Kasai and Rin being close. Rin turns to Hannah and asks what she is holding in her hand. The girl says that she is glad to hear this question from a guy. The girl holds out her hand with ice cream and says that it looks great, so she decided to buy it. Rin and Kasai thought the same thing at that moment. They assumed that Hannah had 3 stomachs. Rin enjoyed a rather long weekend with Hannah and Yui. They spent the entire day walking around the mall. The next day, he headed to the E-rank dungeon, the Purple Sound dungeon, again. The guy once again defeated all the monsters and the boss. He received a system notification, according to which he receives a reward for capturing the dungeon, an increase of 1 level. Rin was able to upgrade the skill, Dungeon Movement, to level 12. The activation time changed from 2 seconds to 1 second. The guy thought that it would be easier for him to conquer the dungeon now. The guy continued to enter the dungeon and defeat all the monsters. He received the reward for capturing the dungeon again and again, an increase of 1 level. But Rin suddenly fell to his knees and began to breathe heavily, because he realized that he was not even close to conquering it. The next day, even when he made 100 attempts, he couldn't do anything. The guy was very tired. But Rin stood up, clenched his fist, and remembered that he had worked hard until this very moment, even though he was considered trash. He decided that he must achieve his goal. The guy used the skill Dungeon Move again. He encountered monsters and defeated them all. On the 4th day, the guy continued to conquer the dungeon. He had already made 200 visits. Rin received a system notification that he had received a reward for capturing a dungeon, a level increase. The guy also received a new system message that he had captured this dungeon the maximum number of times. He got a bonus, a 15-level increase. The new system message says that the next time he captures a dungeon, the guy will not receive a reward. Rin listens to the message, and then he raises his hands and screams in delight. Rin is happy that he made 200 runs and was finally able to conquer the 2nd dungeon. Rin kneels down and clenches his fists tightly. It took him 4 days to conquer the dungeon. It was very long and hard for the boy. Rin returns home and opens the system again to check his statistics. The guy sees that he has 2,310 experience points. Rin decides that he needs to properly allocate his experience points. He opens the skill status window. Rin sighs as he needs to decide what he will spend his points on and find a new dungeon to play. Rin decides that he will challenge a C-rank dungeon this time. He thinks that he should choose a dungeon that is closer to home, and preferably without monsters that inflict debuffs. The guy looks at the list of dungeons and sees the one he needs, Kenzaki Dungeon. Its recommended level is 600 units. The guy thinks that he should improve his attack power and speed. Now he can quickly attack and retreat. Rin decides to spend the rest later. The boy remembers that he wanted to try out his battle tactics the next day, but the boy can't get through this dungeon. That's why Rin had to go to Tanagi's dungeon. There he spent a week training on small monsters. He honed his tactics and earned a little over 1 million, while the guy raised 3 levels. The boy walked home and kept count, adding up what he had earned from the dream dungeon. He had about 2 million. He had saved up a small fortune. Now Rin would be able to take Hannah to more serious establishments. The next day, the guy planned to go to a C-rank dungeon, namely to a C-rank dungeon, the Kenzaki dungeon. Rin approached the desired dungeon. He noticed that a lot of people had gathered around it. It turned out that the statistics were not lying. There were many times more C-rank adventurers. Rin thought that it was all a lie. There were many adventurers around the dungeon, and they were all wearing good equipment. In addition, they were all grouped together. Suddenly, someone screamed. Rin turned around and saw 2 guys talking about a rumored group. The boys heard that each of the group they were discussing had unique skills. People thought that these adventurers were monsters who were able to reach level 2000 in just 1 year. The discussion continues, and one of the guys says that adventurers from this group were invited by many guilds, but they refused them all. Rin saw old acquaintances spreading rumors about him and trying to drive him out. He couldn't understand what they were doing near this dungeon. Shin Kazami approaches Rin and says that he didn't expect to meet him near a C-rank dungeon. Rin can't say the same. Rin remembers Shin Kazami telling him that he wants to create a guild that only includes people with special skills. He still wants to climb to the top and push all the known guilds. Rin remembers the girl asking Shin Kazami why he couldn't just directly tell the boy that he needed to leave the guild if they wanted to establish themselves as a famous guild. Rin recalls Kazami's hypocrisy when he said that image was very important in their business. He believed that kicking out a newbie and accepting his voluntary departure were 2 completely different things that would later reflect on the guild status. Shin Kazami smiles and says that he doesn't want to tell how they came to this dungeon, since it's a long story. He says that he wants to meet the members of the guilds that Rin is a part of. He asks if the boy doesn't mind. Rin says that, unfortunately, he has no comrades. He talks about conquering dungeons alone. Shin Kazami can't believe it. Shin Kazami moves his hand to the side, and tells Rin not to joke like that. He says that if the guy is going to conquer the dungeon alone, he needs to be at least level 600. He asks if the guy has already reached the required level. The guy scoffs, thinking that Rin made a mistake somewhere. Rin smiles and says that he really has reached level 600. Shin Kazami looks at the guy, dumbfounded. Shin Kazami laughs and says that it's amazing. He tells the guy that he was worried about him after he left. He tries to convince Rin that if it's true, then he's very happy for him. Rin says that he told about himself, and now asks what Shin Kazami's guild is doing in this dungeon if they have already reached level 2000. He asks why they came to this dungeon. Shin Kazami sighs and says that it's all the fault of the girl behind him. The girl's name was Rei Kurosaki. Shin Kazami explains that the girl is a newbie, having become an adventurer a few months ago. Shin Kazami says that the girl has an incredible, unique skill. That's why he invited her to their guild. He says that they are currently helping the girl level up. Rin is amazed that the girl is so good. Shin Kazami smiles and says that Rei was able to reach level 500 in just 3 months. Rin can't believe that the girl was able to reach level 500 in just 3 months. Rei says that it's time for them to stop talking and continue their journey into the dungeon. Shin Kazami turns around and wishes Rin luck. Rin sighs and wishes him luck in return. Rin sighs again and is glad that they are done talking. Then the boy opens his eyes and looks away. Suddenly, Rei is right next to him. The boy is scared. Rei asks if the guy is Rin. The guy replies that that is his name. He asks if they know the girl. Rei says they don't, but she has heard a lot about the guy from Kazami and the other guild members. Rei explains that the people from the guilds only said bad things about Rin and considered him an obstacle to the guilds. Rin looks away and curses. Rin doesn't understand why Rei is telling him this. He thinks that the girl either doesn't read the atmosphere well, or doesn't understand, or likes to make fun of her. He's nervous because he can't understand her. Rei then continues and says that she feels like the other guild members and Shin lied to her. Rin looks at the girl, dumbfounded. He doesn't understand her. Rin asks why the girl thinks that. Rei says it's just intuition. She tells the guy that she feels some kind of power in him. Rei says that this strength is confidence. At least Rin is not acting like a weak person should. Rin is stunned. He asks why the girl is telling him this. He asks how the guild treats the girl. Rei tells him that the guild supports her. She has no complaints about them, but the girl wants to ask the guy something. Rin tenses up. Rei asks what Rin thinks about their guild names. Rin remembers that about a year ago, Shin Kazami called everyone together for a meeting to say something. Shin Kazami said that they were all geniuses with unique skills. He believed that in the future, they would be able to reach the top as the owners of unique skills. He convinced everyone that they would become the kings of the world. That's why the guy decided to open the scroll he was holding in his hands and say that their guild would be called King of Uniqueness. Rin recalled this and looked very displeased. Rin says that he thinks the name of their guilds is terrible. Rei raises his hands and blushes, saying that he thinks the same. Rei blushed and looked at the guy. She was delighted, because Rin is the first one who feels the same as she does. She was happy. The girl shakes the guy's hand and says that he can call her just Rei. The guy shakes his hand and agrees. Rin recalls that all the other guild subordinates were delighted with the name that Shin Kazami came up with. At this place, on this day, the Uniqueness King Victims Association was created. Rin decides to continue on his way and head to the dungeon. A few minutes later, he finds himself there. The guy was looking around the dungeon, trying to figure out what the difference was from dungeons of another rank. The guy turned the corner and noticed that huge monsters were moving towards him. The boy took out a dagger and decided to evaluate the opponents. Rin saw that the opponents were level 400. They were brown, pig-faced demons who used a club and an axe. They attacked slowly but very powerfully. Rin was ready to begin taking over the dungeon. The enemies began to move faster towards him. Rin was in a C-rank dungeon, the Kanzaki dungeon. This dungeon had 30 floors. Elite monsters often encountered in this dungeon include horned rabbit, red boar. The boss on the lower floors is quite strong, but the reward for it is an increase to level 20 and a smoke magic stone, which costs 100,000 yen. Rin realizes that if you clear this dungeon alone for the first time, you can get the Kenzaki sword, which adds 600 points to your strength. Rin saw the opponents again, who were level 400. They were brown, pig-faced demons who used a club and an axe. They attacked slowly, but very powerfully. Rin begins conquering the dungeon. The monster swings its weapon to strike the boy. The guy manages to dodge. He grips his weapon tighter and delivers a counterattack. The guy is surrounded by a huge number of monsters. Rin opens the inventory and is going to get an item from there. The guy says that he hid something for the monsters. The guy throws a smoke bomb that he took out of his inventory and shouts that he saved a gift for the monsters. The bomb explodes and smoke spreads everywhere. The monsters are lost in space and see nothing. The guy speeds up and runs through the smoke very quickly, hitting all the monsters. All the monsters fall to the ground, defeated. Rin bends down and picks up the magic stone, which he decides to take with him. The guy also notices a stone axe, which was an orc weapon. Its recommended level was 400 units. With its help, strength increased by 200 points. The guy decides that he will take it with him. Rin compares the weapons. He realizes that the stone axe does indeed show that it belongs to a C-rank dungeon. Rin notices that the regular monsters in this dungeon drop weapons stronger than his old dagger, so he decides to move the stone axe to his inventory. Rin looks around and realizes that he hasn't fought such powerful monsters in a long time. His health points have decreased by 100 units, but at the same time, everything was still going well. Rin thinks that this dungeon feels different. He then steps forward and shouts that he came to this dungeon to level up, not to whine. The boy goes down to the 5th floor of Kenzaki's dungeon. A rabbit appears right in front of him. The boy notices a horn on the rabbit's forehead and realizes that these are the very same horned rabbits. Rin looks at the rabbit and thinks that it can't be that dangerous. At that moment, the rabbit is about to attack the guy. Rin manages to react and block the attack with his dagger. He realizes that it was very close. The guy opens the system panel and sees that there is a monster in front of him in the form of a horned rabbit. It has a powerful skill called a dash. It can also attack with its paws. The guy was not enough information. Rin hits the rabbit and it falls to the ground unconscious. One hit was enough to defeat the rabbit. The boy receives a system message that his level has increased by 1. Rin understands that elite monsters also give levels. He finds it surprising because this has never happened before. On the 15th floor of the Kenzaki dungeon, the boy encounters a new monster, a level 400 red boar. It was a monster in the form of a wild boar with thick fur. It uses its weight in attacks, which gives them heaviness. The skin of this boar is very strong, so adventurers often use it in various equipment. The boar is about to attack the guy. He runs at full speed straight at him. The guy manages to dodge. Rin gets into a fighting stance and wonders why the red boars are so slow. He notices that they attack very directly. The boar grunts, and Rin swings his dagger and stabs the boar. Rin can't pierce the boar's skin because it's too thick. His dagger can't penetrate it. Rin activates his inventory and decides it's time to get out the stone axe, which should definitely work. Rin swings her stone axe and strikes the monster right on the head. The red boar falls to the ground unconscious. Rin receives another notification that his level has increased by 1. Rin approaches the red boar as she really wants to take it with her, but it is too big. A message comes from the system according to which an error has occurred. The object is overloading the inventory. Rin stands up and sighs. He still doesn't want to leave the red boar, but he decides that he needs to move on. Rin defeats monsters again and increases his level. After all this, the guy goes to the last floor of Kenzaki's dungeon. He is happy that he finally got to the boss. Rin approaches a wooden door. He opens it and goes inside. Immediately, a huge monster appears in front of the guy. Rin smiles. He is looking forward to the boss fight. The boss is a level 500 orc high lord. He is the leader of the orcs. A giant brown monster with a pig's face who uses a large club or axe as his weapon. The orc leader has powerful strength and speed, and his blow can easily destroy the earth. The guy looks at the boss in shock, noticing his enormous size. The boss lunges towards Rin. He swings his club and tries to hit the guy, but he jumps back. The club hits the ground and destroys the foundation under his feet. Rin looks at the mark left by the club and is amazed by the boss's strength. The guy understands that if he doesn't pull himself together, he can lose half of his health points in one blow, but even so, he can't sit on the defensive forever. Rin slaps his face and decides it's his turn to attack. Rin starts running behind the orc leader. The boss doesn't understand what's going on. Rin decides he can now strike the orc leader. The boy swings and strikes. The boss dodges, then swings his club to counter. Rin moves straight onto the club, then pushes off and jumps over the orc leader. He ends up behind the monster and strikes it. The monster screams in pain. Rin realizes that this is not the end. He strikes a few more times until the monster starts grunting and drops its weapon from its hands. Rin notices that the orc leader has decided to growl and wonders if the monster really thinks it will hurt him in any way. Rin isn't going to just stand there. He lunges, jumps up, and strikes the orc leader with his sword again. The blow lands on the monster's chest. Blood spurts out, and the monster falls on its back. Rin receives a notification that he was able to defeat the dungeon boss. The guy was able to increase his level by 4 units. Rin also receives a system notification that he has captured a dungeon and his level has been increased by 20 points. Rin sighs as he realizes that he was able to win. He was able to win without using a single HP point. Rin is happy that he is actually getting stronger. Rin looks at the defeated boss and decides that he needs to collect the loot while he has time. Rin sees the High Orc Magic Stone and the club. According to the stats, the club was level 500. Its attack power was increased by 400. Rin tried to pick up the club. He realized that it was big and heavy, meaning it was useless to him. He puts it in his inventory, intending to sell it. The boy also takes 1 smoke bomb. Rin expected a sword to drop as well. He didn't understand and wondered if that was really all he could take. The boy fulfilled all the requirements. Rin decides to explore the dungeon again. He does not hear the signal informing about the return zone. The guy thinks about how he has not been transported back for a very long time. Rin receives a system notification that he has been confirmed to have passed the challenge on his first try. Rin wonders what to do next. The system kept sending new messages, but it wouldn't transfer him back. The boy receives a message that an additional boss, Nameless Knight, will appear. Rin does not understand what this condition and additional boss are. Rin looks dumbfounded as the additional boss appears from underground. Rin can't tell if this is really happening. The extra boss, Nameless Knight, level 1000, has appeared right in front of him. Rin is in the boss room on the bottom floor of the Kenzaki dungeon. The guy doesn't understand what's going on. He receives a message from the system that Rin has fulfilled additional conditions, causing the additional boss, Nameless Knight, to appear. Rin chuckles, not understanding what additional conditions he has fulfilled. Suddenly, a boss appears from underground. Nameless Knight is level 1100th and is an additional boss in the Kenzaki dungeon. Rin didn't plan on fighting the extra boss. He had never encountered such a boss in Kenzaki dungeon before. Rin realizes that he is the first one to encounter something like this. The boss moves towards the boy. Rin takes a fighting stance. He takes into account that the boss is level 1100. He understands that with his level and abilities, he has little chance of winning. Rin has no choice. Either he defeats the additional boss, or he is defeated in battle with him. Moreover, the door of the room will not open until the guy defeats the boss. Rin once again understands that he has no choice. Rin holds his weapon out in front of him, determined to fight. The Nameless Knight raises his sword. The boss swings his sword and strikes Rin. The guy blocks the blow with his dagger. But he is in a very difficult situation because of the powerful strength of the Nameless Knight. Rin jumps back and decides that he will parry all attacks of the additional boss. He notices that the Nameless Knight attacks very quickly. Rin tenses up because he's only defending himself. The Nameless Knight swings his arm again to strike. Rin realizes that he can't continue like this. The Nameless Knight lowers his sword. It is at this moment that Rin is about to attack. He swings and strikes, but it does not work. He notes that the armor of the Nameless Knight is very strong. Therefore, it will be very difficult to penetrate it and cause any damage. The Nameless Knight tries to strike with his sword again. He swings and lands a blow that causes Rin to start falling backwards. The extra boss then lunges forward and swings his leg. Rin notices that the Nameless Knight is about to kick, but he doesn't have time to dodge, so he blocks. The Nameless Knight kicks Rin. After this kick, the boy's health units decrease from 6,400 for 5,780. Rin is dumbfounded that the Nameless Knight was able to deal massive damage with just one kick. The Nameless Knight stands in front of Rin. He holds his sword straight in front of him. Rin begins to realize the difference at this point. The extra boss's stats are on a completely different level. He leans more towards strength and durability. Rin himself surpasses the extra boss only in speed. Rin thinks that the weakest areas are the elbows and knees. He should concentrate on them. Rin holds his sword out in front of him, pointing it at the Nameless Knight, and firmly states that he does not intend to lose. The Nameless Knight begins to attack again. Rin either parries or deflects all sword strikes. The Nameless Knight approaches Rin, attempting to strike him with his sword, but the boy leans down and strikes the Nameless Knight in the elbow. Rin decides to continue in the same spirit. The Nameless Knight swings again, exposing his elbows. At this moment, Rin swings her dagger, intending to strike the sub-boss's weak point. Rin delivers a slash straight at the elbow of the Nameless Knight. The sub-boss's arm flies off along with his sword. Rin is happy that he succeeded. The guy thinks that he still has to deal with the left hand of the Nameless Knight. Suddenly, the Nameless Knight stares at the boy and grabs his hand. Rin is stunned by the movement. The Nameless Knight continues to hold the boy's hand, and then smiles predatorily. Rin suddenly lifts his head and looks at the Nameless Knight. He brings up that the extra boss most likely planned this in advance. He sacrificed one arm on purpose. Rin wonders if monsters have intelligence. At that moment, the Nameless Knight raises his leg to strike. Rin is hit hard in the stomach and is sent flying a great distance, crashing into the doors of the room. Rin coughs and tries to catch her breath. The guy's health dropped from 6,440 to 965 units. Rin sat on the ground, leaning against the door. At that moment, the Nameless Knight was about to attack the boy again. Rin looked at the extra boss and wondered if this was really his end. He didn't want to leave his life in the dungeon. Rin was thinking that the difference in his strength with the Nameless Knight was making him laugh. At that moment, the Nameless Knight pointed the tip of his sword at the boy. No matter how much Rin tries to survive, his health points still fall below 1,000. Rin understands that he cannot defeat the additional boss. It is impossible. Rin was thinking about something else. He opened his eyes and realized that he had another way out. He had a personal skill called dungeon movement that could help him. Rin felt the door right behind him. He thought that maybe he could get to the other side of the door. The boy decided that this was the best option, and the Nameless Knight at this time raised his sword to attack. Rin has already found the best way out of this difficult situation. The guy activates his inventory. He takes out a smoke bomb. Rin says he is sorry. He apologizes to the Nameless Knight for keeping him waiting. The smoke bomb explodes and smoke starts spreading everywhere. The Nameless Knight is confused. He doesn't see the guy. The extra boss decides to swing his sword and try to hit at random. Rin remembered the words of people who told him that he would not make a proper adventurer. They all advised the boy to find a proper job. Rin uses her skill, dungeon movement. A magical haze begins to envelop him. Many adventurers told Rin that his skill was useless, but he put everything into it. Even though he knew they were right, he did not give up. Rin thought that no matter how stupid he was, if he gave in to difficulty and broke down in front of one problem, then how did he live before that? Rin is sure that if something like that could break him, he would have stopped being an adventurer long ago. Rin smiles. The Nameless Knight turns around and is shocked to see Rin standing right behind him. Rin holds a dagger right next to the Nameless Adventurer's head. He says that the extra boss moves too slowly. Rin holds a dagger right next to the Nameless Knight's head. He says that the extra boss moves too slowly, so he still has an advantage in the fight in the form of speed. The Nameless Knight doesn't have time to react and somehow counterattack. The guy at this moment makes a dash forward and delivers the final blow to the additional monster. Rin thinks that by throwing the smoke bomb at the Nameless Knight, he did two things before using the skill, dungeon movement, that helped him get into an advantageous position. First, he restored his health. He drank a health potion and increased his health units from 985 to 1,985. Thus, he felt much better. Secondly, the guy opened the system screen and improved his skill. He increased the level of the skill, body strengthening. Now it was level 6, and the attack power increased by 550 units. This was Rin's only chance to counterattack, so he decided that he couldn't let it go, and immediately moved into battle as soon as he had done everything necessary. The guy wasn't going to lose. Rin raises her dagger and is about to stab the Nameless Knight, who still couldn't get his bearings. The smoke was making it very difficult for the Nameless Knight to see the boy and stab him. The boy screamed and ran straight towards the Nameless Knight. He stabbed the dagger in the back, piercing the armor of the Nameless Knight. The boy let out a roar, as it was very difficult for him to penetrate this strong armor. Then Rin activates the inventory and says that there is more. The guy takes out a stone axe from the inventory and hits the extra boss on the back with it. The stone axe was times more powerful than his dagger. Rin swings the stone axe again to strike again, to strike again. The nameless knight turns around and stares at the boy. He tries to block the blow. Rin is confused at first by the knight's move, and then thinks that it is too predictable. The boy says that the nameless knight will not be able to dodge his attack. The nameless knight was about to raise his sword, but Rin manages to deliver a slash. The knight's left arm flies off. The extra boss starts screaming. He lost his arm, and now he can't hold a sword with it. Rin looks at the sub-boss with determination and says that it's time to end this. He decides that it's time for the final blow that will ensure his victory over the sub-boss. The nameless knight continues to scream, and Rin puts her hand forward to catch the sword that flew out of the nameless knight's hands. The sword flies straight towards the boy. Rin catches the nameless knight's sword as it flies off after the attack. He swings his sword and screams at the extra boss that this is his end. The nameless knight looks at the boy in horror and screams. Rin strikes and cuts the monster in two. The guy lowers his sword and looks at the additional boss, who stood for a while and then began to collapse and fell to the floor. Rin sank down, leaning on his sword. He tried to catch his breath and bring his breathing back to normal. He had spent all his strength on this fight. This should have been his end, but the guy still managed to come up with a new strategy to win. Rin looks at the nameless knight and thinks that he was definitely the strongest opponent he had ever faced. Before this, he had only fought against a small fry, so this was an invaluable experience for him. While Rin was trying to get his breathing back to normal, he received a system message that he had successfully defeated the extra boss, despite the fact that he had little advantage. New system messages reported that the guy had reached level 52, that his level had been increased by 30 points for completely crushing the boss. The guy also received the title Nameless Swordsman. Rin was still trying to catch his breath. He didn't expect his level to be increased by more than 82 units. It was a lot, but he was very happy because he would be able to level up faster. Rin looked down at the sword and thought that this was his best reward. The boy began to evaluate the sword. It seemed huge and powerful. After all, the sword was of a higher level than the boy's dagger. The sword was used by an unnamed knight. Its recommended level is 1,100. Attack power increases by 1,100 units. If the enemy's level is higher than the user's, the parameters increase by 20%, except for health and mana units. Rin sighs and looks at the sword. He says that the sword has an original name. He decides that this sword will be a good replacement for his broken dagger. Moreover, he needed a more powerful weapon. Rin kneels down and touches the shards of his dagger. He thanks the nameless knight for the fight and the new sword. He didn't expect to get so much for defeating the extra boss. Rin sighs and thinks about his new title. He opens the system screen and looks at the information about the title Nameless Swordsman that he suddenly got. This title is given to those who have overcome all difficulties alone, passing them only by their own strength and sword. As the level increases, the sword's characteristics will increase accordingly. If the owner of the title has skills that improve sword skills, the effects of the title will not work. The guy is dumbfounded by this fact. It seems to him that this is a very useful skill that will be useful to him in the future. Rin puts his hand to his chin and considers the fact that the buff improves the weapon's stats as it levels up. He wonders if the system finds the names too generic. The guy then closes the system screen and thanks it for all the upgrades he was able to get. He didn't expect such a generous reward for completing the dungeon and defeating the additional boss. Rin is going to collect all the items and leave, as there is little time left and he does not want to linger any longer. It was hard for him because he did not restore much health. Unfortunately, due to all the attacks, the magic stone of the Nameless Knight was destroyed, so Rin did not get it. But the guy did not get upset about this because he already received a lot of different rewards. Rin came out of the dungeon. That was how his long day in Kenzaki's dungeon ended. He never imagined that he would end up in a situation like this, where he would have to save his own life. The next morning, after the battle with the Nameless Knight, Rin went to the shop near Kenzaki's dungeon. It was close to the center, so it was the perfect option. Rin entered the store and was greeted by the girl who was the salesperson at the store. She looked friendly. The girl was supposed to tell the guy what weapon he should take. The girl smiled at the guy and asked if he could show her his adventurer card. This was a must in stores like this, where the merchandise was aimed at adventurers. Rin came closer to the girl and handed her his card. The girl took the card and began to examine it. She saw the guy's characteristics, rank, abilities, personal data. Rin was in a weapons shop where only qualified people could buy anything. There was a huge selection of weapons that adventurers took to go through dungeons. Even though Rin had received the sword of the Nameless Knight a day ago, he still decided to update his weapon arsenal. The shop was the perfect option, especially since it had a huge assortment of different weapons. Rin descended to the 15th floor of the dungeon several times, where he encountered a huge number of different monsters. The boy stopped and thought about how he took more damage with the Nameless Sword. His health was 6,680 units. Rin noticed that his attack power had increased, but this sword was slowing him down a lot. He was used to moving quickly and dexterously. Moreover, he was not very skilled in wielding heavy weapons. The boy looks at the sword's stats again. The sword was used by a Nameless Knight. Its recommended level is 1,100. Attack power is increased by 1,100 units. Its peculiarity is that if the opponent's level is higher than the user's, the parameters are increased by 20%, except for health and mana. Rin assumed that his speed had decreased, most likely because his other stats were lower in level. Rin looked at the screen with the Nameless Knight's sword and thought that he was more accustomed to the dagger. He decides that there is nothing he can do about it. He won't be able to change the sword's stats anyway. Rin is currently more inclined to use a dagger than a sword, so the guy decides to go to a weapons store and buy exactly the same dagger, and maybe even one with better characteristics. That's how the guy ended up in the weapons shop. He needed a replacement for his old dagger that broke after a fight with the Nameless Knight. He was upset because it was his favorite dagger. The saleswoman acknowledges that the guy is an adventurer. She points to the right and says that they have equipment for D-rank adventurers in the shop that way. She asks the guy to follow her. Rin looks at his stat card and remembers that he is still a D rank. He forgot that he already has the opportunity to increase his rank. Rin has already cleared C rank dungeons, so he is already technically a C rank. All he has to do is apply to confirm this factually. Rin thinks that if he tells the shop assistant about his C rank, she will have to show him a weapon of his level, because his level would match it. Besides, the guy can prove it to her, because he recently cleared a C rank dungeon. He can confirm it. Everything should be reflected in his stats. As the girl and boy pass by the C-rank weapons section, the boy stops. The shop assistant looks at him and asks what happened. Rin says that everything is fine. Rin points to the C-rank weapons section and says that he needs to go there. The girl stands there confused. She asks what the guy just said. She couldn't understand. Rin no longer listens to the girl. He approaches the shelves with weapons in the C-rank department and begins to examine everything. He thought about what would be best for him to choose. The girl did not understand why the guy went to this department. She tried to explain to him that he was mistaken and dissuade him from going to this department. Rin has seen a huge number of different weapons. He notices that weapons with special skills are quite expensive. He decides that he does not need them. Rin points to one of the daggers and turns to the salesgirl, asking if he can take a closer look. He is drawn to one of the daggers. The girl stands there confused for a moment, then comes over and opens the display case to look at the dagger the boy was pointing to. The guy chose the dagger Kirikuri. The dagger was a reward for defeating the boss of the dungeon Kirikuri, with the condition that the adventurer fought alone. The recommended level is 6,800. The attack power adds 500 units. Rin examined the sword. He thought that although this dagger didn't have any special skills, it was still not bad. Moreover, its shape was similar to Rin's old dagger. In addition, it had no level restrictions. Rin offers 2 million for the sword and says she'll take it. The salesgirl is taken aback. She raises her hands and tries to say something to the guy. When the guy finally gives the girl his word, she says that he shouldn't make such hasty purchases. She asks him to think better of it. She also notes that the dagger is good, but expensive. The salesgirl tries to convince the guy that it won't be easy for a D-rank adventurer to wield this sword. Rin smiles and activates the inventory. He says that it won't be a problem. The inventory immediately appears right next to him. Rin says that he understands the value of the sword. He reaches into his inventory and takes out money. He says that money is not a problem. Rin hands over some bills, while the salesgirl looks at the boy in shock. He smiles and says that he can pay for everything at once. The salesgirl looks at the money for a while, dumbfounded, then blushes and realizes that the guy can actually afford to buy such an expensive weapon. The girl smiles and thanks the guy for the purchase. Rin heads to Kenzuki's dungeon again after the shop to level up. He began to conquer the dungeon again and fight the monsters that attacked him. The boy defeats the red boar once again. The boar falls to the ground and lies unconscious. Rin looks at the boy and sighs. Rin thinks that now, with the weapon of his level, it has become much easier for him to defeat his opponents. This time is no exception. The boar seemed many times weaker to the guy, but he still wants to take him to himself once again. Rin opens the system screen and tries to upgrade the inventory by increasing its level to level 2. He thinks that this should increase its throughput. Rin tries to place a boar in his inventory to earn money for the dagger. After several attempts, he finally succeeds. Rin descends to the 30th floor of the dungeon. The guy approaches the door that leads to the boss room. Rin thinks that his second battle against this boss has come. But before entering, the guy activates the inventory and takes out an unnamed sword. He looks at the sword and smiles. Rin decides that the nameless sword is the perfect weapon to use against this boss. Plus, the effects of the title will make it easier for him. The guy opens the system screen and sees that the title Nameless Swordsman is given to those who have overcome all difficulties alone, passing only by their own strength and sword. When the level increases, the characteristics of the sword will increase accordingly. If the owner of the title has skills that improve sword skills, then the effects of the title will not work. Rin looks at the sword and understands that the sword will improve its performance in the case of a boss that is higher than him in level. Rin opens the doors and walks inside. He wishes himself luck and prepares for battle. There is a grunting sound from inside the room. Right in front of the guy, a boss appeared who looked like a huge boar. Rin pointed his sword at the dungeon boss and demanded that he fight him. The boss grunted and then swung his club. Rin smiles as he remembers how it was very difficult for him to dodge a day ago, but after leveling up, he can now attack head-on. The boy swings his sword and screams as he strikes the boss. Rin asks the boss if he can block his blow. Rin continues to punch him while the boss raises his club and doesn't know what to do. Rin lands a strong blow on the boss, who starts to grunt. Rin smiles and asks how many more blows the boss can take. The guy continues to hit and speeds up. After a huge number of hits, the boss falls to the ground unconscious. Rin receives a message from the system, informing her that the boy has defeated the dungeon boss. The amount of experience gained has increased by 2 units. His capture level has increased to 20. Rin sighs when he realizes that he won't have to fight an extra boss. Rin picks up his sword, looks at it, and wonders how much better it has become. The guy is about to evaluate the sword. The guy looks at the stats of the sword the Nameless Knight used. Its recommended level is 1,120 units. Sword specialty: if the enemy's level is higher than the user's parameters are increased by 20%, except for health and mana. Rin looks at the time and realizes that it was already 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He felt energetic, so he decided to walk through the dungeon again. Rin looks at the teleporter and thinks that if he speeds up and uses it, he can clear the dungeon at least 4 more times. Rin approaches the teleporter and turns around, checking if there is anyone next to him. The guy doesn't see anyone and decides that he can teleport. The guy walks forward. Rin looks around and thinks that there aren't many people in Kenzaki's dungeon, so he can easily teleport. Suddenly, the boy hears a familiar voice. He turns around and sees Rei. The girl was looking at the boy, and Rin was looking back, scared. Rei was holding the sword in her hands and looked very serious. Rin is embarrassed and greets Rei. He looks at the sword and it seems to him that its edge is blurry. Then he decides to concentrate on something else, since it is not the most important thing. Rin comes closer to the girl and says that he did not expect to see her in this dungeon at all. Rin says that they met rather quickly. Rei agrees, recalling their previous meeting, which took place just a day ago. Rin asks the girl if she came alone or with Kazami and the others. Rin confirms his words and says that she came alone because she does not want to be accompanied forever. Rei says that after the previous meeting, she decided that she wanted to reach the 10th floor on her own. That's why she came to this dungeon. Rin doesn't know what to say, so he says that he understands everything. He remembers that Rei is level 500. Rin points out that the dungeon they are in is hard to conquer even at level 600. He assumes that Rei is fighting small monsters. Rin decides that he should take into account the fact that while he is clearing the dungeon, his friend is walking around nearby. Rin rubs the back of his head and thinks to himself that he should be careful of the girl next time around. Otherwise, he might arouse suspicion if he meets her again. Rin is embarrassed and says that they have been talking for a long time, so he should go now. Moreover, he does not want to distract the girl from conquering the dungeon. Rei grabs the guy's hand abruptly. Rin turns around and looks at the girl questioningly. She squeezes his hand tighter, and Rin asks the girl what happened. Ray says that this is a great opportunity for her. She offers the guy to go conquer the dungeon together. Rin is taken aback by the girl's offer. He asks why the girl wanted to do so. Ray says that this is a great opportunity for her. She offers the guy to go conquer the dungeon together. Rin is taken aback by the girl's offer. He asks why the girl wanted to do so. Sometime after meeting Ray, the boy and the girl headed to Kenzuki's dungeon on the 5th floor. They walked in silence. Rin sometimes looked at the girl and did not know how to start a conversation. At one point, Ray herself looked at the guy. Then they continued walking, continuing to remain silent. Suddenly, the girl tries to say something. The guy interrupts her and asks if he can find out her age and current situation. Rin suddenly stops talking and tenses up as he realizes what he just said. He thinks about how these kinds of questions are usually asked on blind dates. He thinks about what he should do now that he made a mistake. The girl raises her index finger and points it at her mouth. She says she is 17 years old. And what she does, the girl prefers to keep a secret. Then Ray turns to the boy and asks the exact same question. Rin rubs the back of his head and says that he is 19 years old. The boy wants to tell him what he does, but he freezes for a moment. Rin thinks that, aside from clearing dungeons, the one thing he spends the most time with is his sister Hannah. But if he says that, she'll think he has a sister complex. However, when Rin was a student, he was interested in reading both manga and anime, and he also enjoyed playing various computer games. Rin tells him that he's been very busy lately, so he has almost no free time. Ray is very embarrassed by the guy's revelation. She says that everything is clear to her. Rin looks at the girl questioningly. He wonders if something could have surprised her. He looks at the girl and tries to figure out what surprised her so much. The guy keeps his hand on his face and decides to change the subject. Ray suddenly asks the boy what kind of job he would like to do. Rin says that the monsters are already approaching, so they need to move on. Rin apologizes for interrupting the girl and asks what she said. Ray looks at the boy with displeasure. She then turns around and continues walking forward, saying that she didn't say anything like that, so they should continue on their way. Rin doesn't understand why the girl decided to continue on her way so abruptly, but he doesn't say anything to her and follows her. At this time, the enemy is watching them from around the corner. Suddenly, a huge number of enemies appeared right in front of Rin and Ray. They all had their weapons out and were ready. Rin also gets into a fighting stance and says that she will fight those who are standing on the left. Ray agrees with the guy and says that in this case, she will fight those who are standing on the right. Rin lunges forward. He swings his sword and strikes the enemies before they can react, but the enemies seem to feel nothing. Rin doesn't understand why. It seems to him that the monster's skin has become stronger than usual. The opponents swing their weapons, grunt, and try to hit the guy. Rin dodges, then prepares to counterattack. But his sword is stopped by a stone axe. It becomes very difficult for the guy. He manages to dodge and jump to the side. The enemy hits the ground with a stone axe, causing it to crack. Rin looks at the spot where he was standing a few seconds ago in shock. Rin thinks that this is definitely beyond the orc's powers. He doesn't understand why they suddenly became so strong. Rin decides to assess the enemy. He sees that the orc is level 600. He is a brown, pig-faced demon who uses a club and an axe. His attacks are not very fast, but powerful. Rin is surprised by the fact that the orc is level 600. He understands that he can't underestimate the monsters, so he decides not to hold back and use all his strength. Rin swings her dagger again and is about to stab the monster. The boy speeds up and screams. Rin manages to land a blow straight into the orc's stomach. The enemy falls to the floor. An orc appears behind Rin. The guy manages to react and dodges the blow and then counterattacks. Another enemy falls to the ground. Rin looks at the fallen enemy and sighs. He thinks that the leveling up he did the day before only benefited him. He became much faster. Rin turns around to see how Ray is doing. He's already finished with his opponents. Rin is amazed to see Ray swing his sword and summon the powers of the wind to cut through his opponents. Rin notices that the opponents are 5 meters away from the girl. He wonders if the girl will be able to reach them. Ray swings his sword and slashes all of his opponents at once, causing their heads to fly off their shoulders. Rin's mouth drops open in surprise. He noticed that the sword's blade had lengthened. He was shocked. The blade returned to its place, and Ray told Rin that she had finished too. At that moment, Rin approaches the girl. He does not believe that such a thing can happen. He notices the smoothness and fluidity of the sword. The guy points to the girl's sword and asks if her sword can really extend. The girl answers yes. Ray raises her sword and says that her unique skill is magic sword. The girl can create swords with special properties. She swings her sword and tells how she created it in the likeness of the wind. This sword can be extended at will, which is very convenient. Rin rubs the back of her head and says that it's great. He asks again if that means she can create any sword she wants. Ray answers yes. She says that there are limitations due to her level and the amount of mana she can use. Rin says that even accepting this fact, he thinks she has an incredible skill. Ray is embarrassed and thanks the guy. The girl says that Rin is also incredible. The guy can't understand what the girl is trying to say. Rin tells that Kazami said that the guy is weak, but the girl is convinced that this is not true at all. She can't even explain the guy's fighting style, who he is so good. Rin looks at the girl dumbfounded. He is still rubbing the back of his head and does not know what to say. Then he finally decides to thank the girl. Rin asks to look at the orcs that were lying on the ground. He asks the girl if she thinks they have become stronger. Ray confirms the words of the young man and says that it is not as easy to fight them as before. Rin explains that he has assessed their abilities and found out that they are level 600. He says that this is comparable to a dungeon boss. He asks if the girl wants to find out what is going on with him. Ray asks if the guy has any guesses. Rin says that there are some assumptions that he wants to confirm. Rin wonders which of them will be the extra boss this time. He notices that there were no earthquakes in the dungeon. He thinks that it is not the Nameless Night, but if it is, he and Ray will have a big problem. Rin says that she is going to look around anyway. He asks the girl what she is going to do. He says that if the girl does not want to continue on her way, she can turn back. The guy does not mind. Ray refuses and says that he will go with Rin. The guy says that in this case they need to move. As a result, as soon as Rin and Ray began to explore the 5th floor, they discovered the reason why the enemies became stronger and more powerful. Rin and Ray entered a room that was filled with a lot of orcs, all of them eating the remains of their defeated enemies. Ray covers her mouth with her hand as she feels sick from what she saw. She asks if what is happening now is true. Rin replies that orcs really are eating each other. Usually, after a victory, all the bodies are absorbed into the dungeon. However, sometimes, some monsters with magic stones remain. Rin suggests that she and the girl have made a new discovery. Monsters really do get stronger when they eat each other. Most likely, the orcs they met earlier came from this room. Ray asks if this means that if they defeat all the orcs, everything will stop. The guy answers yes. Rin says they better stop the orcs before someone else gets hurt. Ray says he'll take care of them. Ray and Rin take out their weapons and get into a fighting stance. Ray takes out a huge number of orcs in a second. She swings her sword and the orcs' heads fly off their shoulders. Ray turns to the boy and, smiling, asks if Rin will help her. The boy agrees and says that it will be even more effective. He wanted to ask this question, but the girl beat him to it. Rin says that it's time for them to begin. The girl agrees. At this time, the orcs were about to attack the boy and girl. Rin lunged forward and began stabbing with his dagger, moving around the room very quickly. Ray stabbed from a distance with her magic sword. When the battle was over, the boy came to the girl and showed her what he had found, the magic stone. He says that they burned all the bodies with the flaming sword that the girl had created. He thinks that everything should stop. Rin turns to the girl and thanks her. Ray says that without the boy's knowledge, she would not have succeeded. She is sure that they did it together. The girl hesitantly begins to ask the guy a question. She asks why the guy decided to become an adventurer. Rin blushes. He doesn't know what to answer, so he repeats the question. He hasn't told anyone about this except Hannah. Rin tells that once upon a time, an adventurer unexpectedly saved his life. Ray listens attentively to the guy. Rin only saw the adventurer's back, but his strength seemed incredible to him. That's why he decided to become an adventurer. Ray says she knew it. That's why she wanted to be with Rin. The guy didn't hear what the girl said, so he asked her again. The girl smiles that she didn't say anything like that. Rai says that there is something more important. She asks the boy if he knows who the adventurer was, who saved them from the monster. Ryan says that he was unable to find out the adventurer's name because the situation was complicated, but even so, he is sure that the man is among the top adventurers in the world. Ray looks at the guy with a smile and thanks him for telling her about it. She is very happy. Rin is embarrassed and rubs the back of her head. He says that it is nice to hear that. He asks what the girl is going to do next. He assumes that the girl will continue to take over the dungeon. Ray replies that she will continue. Rin suggests continuing on and points with her hand in the direction they should go. It was unusual for the boy to visit dungeons with someone since he always cleared them alone. But now Rin understands that sometimes it is more enjoyable to go through a dungeon with someone. The next day, Rin once again went to Kenzaki's dungeon. The boy again fought with the opponents that he met along the way. Rin has conquered Kenzaki's dungeon 15 times already. He has raised his level to 301, and in just one day, he was able to earn more than 3 million. The next day, Rin began to level up even faster, teleporting into the dungeon, defeating only red boars. In the end, Rin was able to conquer the dungeon 20 times. He leveled up to 400 and earned 4 million. Rin had upgraded her inventory to level 4, but there was still not enough space. The boy tried to put a high-quality orc magic stone in it, but there was an error, not enough capacity, but he continued anyway. The next day, the boy went to the dungeon again to level up. This time, he had completed the dungeon 23 times. The boy reached the boss. The orc boss swung for a blow, but the boy was able to block it with one hand. The boss looked at the boy dumbfounded, and Rin took out his sword to attack and said that this was the end for his opponent. The guy dealt a slashing blow to the orc boss, and it split into 2 parts. As a result, the enemy was defeated. The guy received a system message that he had received a reward for capturing the dungeon. His level had been increased by 20 units. The system also notified the guy that he had captured the dungeon the maximum number of times. The bonus reward level was also increased by 50 units. In the future, the guy will not receive any rewards for capturing this dungeon. The guy was happy that he was able to capture the dungeon 60 times. He was able to complete Kenzaki's dungeon. Rin noticed that he had accumulated a lot of experience points, a whole 11,510 points. He was thinking about where to invest them. The guy's existing skills included body strengthening, level 6, high-speed movement, level 4. The guy's new skills included enemy search, level 1, stealth, level 1, resistance to negative effects, level 1. Rin looks at the stats and decides that he needs to increase his strength and speed first, as they have a maximum level of 10. On top of that, the guy decides he should pump up enemy detection, stealth, and resistance to negative effects. He still has 610 units left. The guy thinks that'll do. He increases body strengthening and high-speed movement to the maximum level. His attack power and speed have increased by 3,000 units. He also developed the skills enemy search and negative effect resistance to the 4th level. Rin could now search for people and monsters around him. He also had resistance to negative effects such as poisoning, paralysis, sleep. Rin was happy that he had become much stronger than his former self. He decided that it was time for him to get down to business. Rin thinks that Tanaga and Arakawa dungeons are good for him to advance further. He cleared them when he first became an adventurer. 3 days later, the boy was clearing the dungeon again. He successfully completed the conquest of the Tanagi dungeon. Rin received a system message that he had captured the dungeon the maximum number of times. Ugo's bonus reward level was increased by 15 units. In the future, the guy will not receive any rewards for capturing this dungeon. At night, the boy returned home. He sat on the bed and looked at the system screen. He saw that this was already the 4th conquered dungeon. Now he needed to distribute experience points. Suddenly, the boy's phone rang. He received a message. Kasayui asked him to meet the next day. Rin met Kasayui at the mall. The girl was in a hurry because she was late for a meeting. As soon as she met the guy, she immediately apologized for being late. She asked how long the guy had been waiting for her. Rin says he's been waiting for her for a long time. Kasai asks if guys aren't supposed to say the opposite at times like this. She blushes really hard. The guy is stunned. He asks if it's true. Kasai says she's just joking. She thanks the guy for finally agreeing to meet her. She suggests the guy go to a cafe. Rin ordered milk tea because the black coffee he had last time was too bitter. Kasai ordered something nice and sweet. The guy doesn't even know what kind of drink it is. Rin asks what the girl wanted to talk about. He assumes that Kasai wanted to tell him something about the dungeon. Kasayui says that she was actually recently invited to the guild. The boy's eyes widen in surprise. Guilds usually have from 10 to 100 people. Top guilds are endowed with enormous power and privileges. Therefore, guilds are always looking for newcomers, especially talented people. Rin asks how much the girl has increased her level in the last few days. The girl thinks about it and says that she just passed the 100 mark a few days ago. The guy is stunned again. He says that the fact that the girl has surpassed level 100 is a surprising fact. When it comes to small and medium guilds, they look for players with high combat power. Only guilds with large financial capital can afford to train newbies. Rin asks Kasayui what the name of the guild she was invited to is. The girl lowers her head and says that the name is Evening Moon. The girl takes out a business card with information about the guild from her pocket. She hands it to Rin so that he can study it. Rin looked at the guild's business card and remembered it. He thinks it's one of the best guilds in Japan. The girl confirms his words and says that the guild representatives claim that they were a small, elite guild. Kasayui says that she was recommended this guild as a community with great potential. Rin heard that there is a shortage of healers everywhere. Kasayui says that it is true. She adds that potions cost a lot of money, so healers are valued. Rin assumes that the girl wants to know what the guy thinks about this, whether she is for joining or, on the contrary, for the girl to continue to go through the dungeons alone. The girl says that this is exactly it. Rin says that he knows a little bit himself. He asks if the girl is okay with it. Kasai gets up from his seat and approaches the boy. She says that she is not at all against it. She wants to hear Rin's opinion. Rin says that he would like to clarify all the advantages and disadvantages of the guild first. The guy starts with the advantages. First, the girl will be supported from the outside. Second, the girl will be supplied with equipment and will also be given strategies for passing many popular dungeons. The guy continues and says that, third, the guild will assemble a group specifically for her, compatible with her, that is, with high compatibility. Rin says that this is very important as it eliminates the risk of the girl being abandoned. Kasayui remembers the previous group that abandoned her to be eaten by a pack of wolves. The boy then raises his index finger and says he will now list the disadvantages. He says the biggest disadvantage is the restriction of freedom. Kasai tilts his head and asks again. Rin says that the guild is planning sweeps, so we'll have to stick to the schedule. Same with the group. Usually the whole group plans together when the next dungeon run will be. Rin says that the problem is only with the requests of the Dungeon Association. Kasayui sighs and says that she's been told about something like this before. Rin reminds that the guild has many privileges, but there are also obligations. The girl nods to keep the conversation going. Rin says that when there is a problem with a dungeon, the guilds are ordered to deal with it. If there are some force majeure situations, the request can still be rejected, but the guilds usually comply. Therefore, its members have to go to quite dangerous places. Rin decides that they need to take stock. He says that if the girl wants to become stronger as quickly as possible, then she should join them. But if the girl wants security and independence, then she shouldn't join the guilds. Rin asks why Kasai decided to become an adventurer. He says he's quite curious. Kasayui looks away and asks the question again. She says that she didn't want to be an adventurer. Kasayui says that she's afraid of fighting monsters. She doesn't even like holding a weapon. Kasayui says that the only reason she qualified as an adventurer is because she invited friends. It's just to raise her stats. Then her body will become tougher and stronger. Kasayui thinks that it is true. She would like to be strong enough to crash a car. Many of them strive for this. That is, only a small number of people risk their lives to become stronger. Kasayui gained power, and when she learned that she was a healer, she decided to support the adventurers from the rear. That is why the girl continues her career as an adventurer, considering it a useful thing. Kasayui looks at her hand and says that maybe it's all a coincidence, but she has this talent, so she thinks that she can help a lot. The girl continues to look at her hands and says that what she wants most is to increase this power, that she can save people. Kasayui looks up at Rin and looks at him with determination. Rin looks at the girl with admiration. Rin says that the girl has already decided everything. Kasayui gives a positive answer. She's going to gather her courage and join the guild. Rin smiles and says that in that case, the girl should be careful. He says that if things get tough, the girl can just leave the guild. Rin says that Kasayui's life is the most important thing. He also asks the girl to be careful of slave exploitation. Kasayui says that there won't be any problems. She reminds that she is still a high school student. Therefore, she will only be able to go to the dungeons on weekends. As for money, Kasayui's earnings will increase since healers earn a huge amount of money. She assumes that she can become better than Rin. Rin smiles and says that he will wait for this moment. The guy managed to earn more than 10 million in 3 days. He wonders if the girl can handle something like that. He would say so, but decides not to. Rin says he has to go. He takes the bill to pay for the order. Kasai asks him to wait. She says she will pay herself. Rin winks at the girl and asks her not to worry. He knows that the girl will not receive money from the guild now because she needs to work first. He asks if he said everything correctly. Rin says that if the girl insists, she can pay next time, but for now, he will pay for the order himself. Kasai Yui blushes and looks at the guy with admiration in her eyes. She says that the guy is very attentive, kind, and reliable. Rin lowers his head and smiles, happy that someone finally realizes what a wonderful person he is. The girl puts her hand to her face and asks why the guy has never had a girlfriend. Rin is shocked. He asks what the girl said and how she knows about it. He asks if the girl is a stalker. Kasai Yui puts her hands forward and says that it's not like that at all. She says that Hannah told her about it. Rin asks why she even mentions it. Rin decides that when he gets home, he will talk to Hannah about what she has been telling everyone about him. Kasai, Yui, and Rin head out of the mall. The boy notices a familiar girl. The boy recognizes Rei. Kasai Yui is surprised by what Kurosaki sees. Kurosaki Rei notices the boy and girl and becomes gloomy. She takes off her headphones and turns her head in their direction. Rei recognizes Rin. The guy greets the girl and says that a week has passed since their last meeting. Kasai Yui intervenes in the conversation and asks why the girl responded to Rin when Yui called out to her. Rei turns to the girl with a grim look and asks who she is. Kasai Yui can't believe that the girl doesn't recognize her. She tells him her name and says that they are in the same class. Rei looks at Kasai Yui and says that she probably really did see her somewhere. Rin didn't even think about Rei going to the same school as Kasai. He thinks that it's a very strange coincidence. Kasai Yui asks Rei how she knows Rin. Rin points at the girl and says that she is also an adventurer. The guy tells her that they met in the dungeon the other day. Kasai is surprised by the boy's answer. She didn't even know that Kurosaki Rei was an adventurer. At this moment, Rei turns to the stand with discs and picks up one of them, which depicted a girl with a cat. Rin becomes a little embarrassed and says that she and Rei are comrades in arms. Rei looks at him, embarrassed. She tried to keep her hobby a secret. Kasai says that she finds it strange. Kasai says it's nice to talk to Rei for the first time. She says the girl usually wears headphones. Kasai Yui didn't have the courage to distract her. She wonders what it was called. Kasai Yui remembers and says that these are anime songs with cute girls. She asks if Rei likes that. Rei feels terrible at this point. Rin sees all this and mentally asks Yui to stop. He thinks that this attack is too strong for her. Rin approaches Rei and asks if she is going to go to the dungeon. Rei blushes and says that she was actually going to visit the dungeon. She talks about how she was going to go to the dungeon with Kazami and the rest of the guild. She plans to go right after the mall since it's not far. At this time, Kasai Yui was looking at the rack with anime songs. There were a lot of completely different ones. Rin looked at Rei with confusion. He thought that the girl didn't get his hint. He thought that the girl should have just left with him. While Kasai Yui was looking through the shelves, Rei was staring into Rin's eyes. The boy was looking at her with a questioning expression. Rin asks if everything is okay. Rei says it's okay. She asks if the guy will go to the dungeon. Rin blushes again and says that he will probably go. He forgot that he had already cleared one dungeon the day before, so he was planning to take the day off. Rei is silent and looks at the guy suspiciously. Rin thinks that he almost asked her to go to the dungeon together. It would be dangerous. Rin approaches Rei. He thinks she has figured something out. Rei says that the guy was planning to go out with a girl on the weekend. She asks him if he's in a relationship with Kasai Yui. Rin looks at the girl in bewilderment at first, and then she starts waving her hands actively and says that everything is not like that at all. Rin tells Yui that he came to consult. He says that he is the only adventurer she knows. Rei says that she understands everything. Rei asks if the guy likes younger girls. Rin is stunned again. He wonders how the conversation got to this point. Rin thinks that this is a very difficult question. He has a feeling that answering "I like" or "I don't like" will only cause confusion. However, as a man, he must answer honestly. The guy puts his hand on his head and says that if he had to choose between liking her or not, he would choose liking her. Rei looks away and blushes. She says that the guy still likes younger girls. Rin notices the girl's reaction and assumes that he made the wrong choice, but he doesn't regret it. Kasai appears and asks what Rei and Rin are talking about. She thinks it's something interesting. Rin says they're just talking. The entire group feels an earthquake. Rin and Kasai look at the ceiling, trying to figure out what's going on. Rin asks what could have happened. Kasai asks if it could be a normal earthquake. The rest of the people look in panic at the ceiling, which began to crumble. A voice was heard, announcing an emergency. The voice reports that there was a splash in the dungeon. The voice asks all citizens to evacuate immediately. Adventurers of rank A and above are to cooperate. Rin couldn't believe that a dungeon surge had occurred. Kasai and Ray ask what a dungeon surge was and what could have happened. A dungeon burst is a very rare occurrence. The gates that usually only adventurers can pass through are open to the monsters that live in the dungeon. That is, the city will be overflowing with monsters that have emerged from the dungeons and gone hunting. A dungeon burst is a very rare occurrence. The gates that usually only adventurers can pass through are open to the monsters that live in the dungeon. Rin turns to Ray and says that she will go fight monsters. He asks what the girl is going to do. Ray says that she will go with a guy. Suddenly, Yui says that she will go with them too. Rin turns around and looks at Yui. He says that to clear Kenzaki's dungeon, you need to be at least level 500. Kasai closes her eyes and says that she didn't plan to fight the monsters. Kasai Yui says that she just wants to heal people with her magic. She thinks that there will be many injured. She says that if she gets in the way of Ray and Rin, then they can just leave her. Rin ponders that civilians without a status window cannot use healing potions. However, healing magic will be useful. The guy also remembers what the girl said about how more than anything in the world she wants to increase her strength, that she can save people. Rin agrees and turns around. He asks the girl not to leave him. Kasai Yui is happy and blushes. She says that she will listen to the guy. Then she thanks Rin for taking her with them. Rin says that they need to go towards the dungeon, and as soon as possible because the monsters can attack civilians. Rin puts her hand on her chest and says that they better get their gear while they have time. Ray agrees with the guy. Ray and Rin change their clothes using the inventory. Yui looks at the guy who changed clothes using the inventory and thinks that it is very convenient. She feels a little deprived because she has not yet received the inventory skill, so she cannot change clothes as well. Rin looks at Yui and says that it's even a little funny since it seems like the girl is not from their group. Kasai Yui looks at the guy with displeasure and says that she didn't expect that from the guy. Rin apologizes to the girl and says that she won't let the girl fight anyway. Kasai Yui is embarrassed and says that if that's the case, then she forgives the guy. Ray's phone rang. She immediately picked it up to answer. The girl listens to the interlocutor through the phone and then sighs and puts the phone back in her pocket. Ray turns to Rin and tells her that Kazami just called her. He asked for help from a girl. Rin says that it's nothing to worry about. Ray apologizes to the guys and says that she needs to go. The guy says that in that case they will go too. He asks Ray to be careful. Ray listens to the guy and asks him the same thing at the end. Rai runs away, and Rin looks at the girl's back. He senses danger. The guy says that he's just winding himself up. Kasai Yui looks at the puzzled guy and asks if he's okay. Rin replies that everything is fine. He says that it is time for them to move. Kasai Yui obeys. Kasai Yui and Rin were running through the city. Suddenly, they heard someone's voice asking for help. They stopped and saw two people surrounded by monsters. Kasai Yui shouts at the boy. Rin says what she sees. The boy makes a dash forward. The monsters and people turn around, looking at the boy in shock. Rin runs at speed and hits the monsters. They all start to surround the guy, but he continues to hit. People at this point were still looking at the guy in shock. The guy deals with all the monsters, and then approaches the people and asks if they are okay. The stranger says that they are okay. He asks if Rin dealt with them. It all seems so fast to him that he didn't even notice. Rin says it was him. He is glad that he managed to help them. Kasai Yui comes to them and begins to heal the stranger with her magic. The second stranger looks at this and thinks that the girl's abilities are incredible. The wound healed immediately. The stranger thanks the boy and girl for their help. Kasai Yui smiles. And Rin at this moment thinks that although the girl is at a low level, her healing skills are good. He thinks that she has a talent for it. Kasai Yui says that she is finished. Yui turns to the boy and asks if they will go further into the dungeon. The boy thinks about it because that was the plan from the beginning. But still, since there are monsters at such a distance from the dungeon, they should deal with them outside the dungeon. Rin thinks that even if they break through into the dungeon, there is still no guarantee that the situation there is much better. Rin understands that the problem is that when the dungeon surges, the monsters become much stronger. He heard that it is because of the excess energy that the dungeon uses to maintain its state. It has nowhere to go now, so it all goes into the monsters. Rin knows that the monsters in the dungeon are currently twice as strong. The bosses have become incredibly strong. Sometimes their strength can increase tenfold. They are often called sequential bosses. By defeating a sequential boss, an adventurer can stop the surge, but this is a very difficult task. One might even say impossible. Therefore, a whole group of adventurers is usually sent. The longer the surge lasts, the stronger the boss becomes. Such bosses become invincible, so the surge must be stopped as quickly as possible. Otherwise, even a group of adventurers will have a hard time dealing with it. If the dungeon is completely destroyed, this incredibly powerful creature will be released. In this case, even one strong group of adventurers will not be able to deal with the monster. That's why the monsters need to be defeated as soon as possible. Because of their strength, you'll need a party of a higher rank. Kenzaki's dungeon is C rank, so you'll need a group of B rank adventurers, or a party of players over level 5000. Rin would like to participate in this, but his level does not allow it. Besides, he already told Ray that he captured the dungeon the day before. Even during the surge, underground restrictions on entering would still be in effect. If he barged in, she would definitely guess that the guy could ignore the rules. Rin is thinking. Rin and Yui were somewhere near the shopping center. Rin tells Yui that this time they are in charge of exterminating the monsters of the Kenzaki dungeon. The girl obeys the guy. At the bottom of the Kenzaki dungeon is Shin. He uses his special skill, Lightning. With it, he defeats all his opponents. The entire guild had reached the boss room much faster than expected. They were all standing right in front of her. A B-rank group from the nearby guilds should arrive in 30 minutes. There was a commotion in front of the dungeon at this time. That's why Kazami took advantage of this and tried to enter the dungeon first using his fame. The manager tried to stop him due to his low level, but he only promised to clear the way for the B-rank group. Although Rei is worried that Kazami ignored so many monsters on the way, but now they can only wait for the B-rank group. Shin walks ahead and says that the monsters on the way were pretty good after all. The guy approaches the door, turning to his group. He says that he has a proposal for them. Shin says that since things turned out this way, they can try to defeat the boss behind the door themselves. Rei was shocked by Kazami's suggestion. Another member of the group asks what the guy is saying. She says that they should wait for backup. Shin spreads his arms wide and says that he has changed his mind. The guy says that if the monsters were a little stronger, they would have done so. But things didn't turn out that way, so the guy thinks that they should be strong enough to defeat the boss. Shin winks at his comrades and asks if it's time for them to spread their wings and make a name for themselves. He thinks this would be the perfect chance for them. Rei thinks about what Kazami is saying. He understands that their primary goal is to keep the dungeon from collapsing. She doesn't think that their fame is that important. Many members start to support Kazami. The girl says that they should not miss the chance to become famous. Another guy says that it is a good idea. He asks if they are not worthy adventurers. He says that even if the boss is stronger, he will cover his comrades with his resilience. The other guy sighs and says that he believes in him. Rei tries to stop everyone. She asks if everyone is really going to do this. She comes closer to Shin and says that this is not what they promised the manager. The guy smiles and says that it will not matter if the boss is defeated. The guy says that if the girl is afraid, she can stay near the room and they will handle the boss themselves. Shin says that if they do this, they will be rewarded and honored. She asks if this is true. He is sure that there is no reason to refuse. Rei looks at the boy in horror. Rei begins to realize that for these guilds, reducing dungeon splash damage is a secondary goal. Shin turns to the girl and says that it is his decision. He reminds her that most of the group agrees with this decision. He says that if the girl does not want to go with them, she can stay behind the room. The guy then becomes more gloomy and says that he does not know if she will be able to handle the remaining monsters behind then. Rei lowers her head and clenches her jaw in anger. She didn't know Shin was so selfish and two-faced. The girl has no choice, so she says she'll go. Kazami smiles and says he thought so. Shin opens the room and everyone steps inside. The doors close. Rei looks around. She turns and realizes that they are no longer waiting for reinforcements. Now, the gates will only open when they win or are defeated. A huge, boar-like boss appears right in front of the entire team. He looks at the team gloomily and grunts. Shin says that it's not a very pleasant surprise, since the boss is certainly strong. He asks Sakura what she has to say. Sakura evaluates the boss's stats and level. She says that the boss is a level 3000 high orc. The entire team is stunned, as this is a very high level. Shin clenches his fist and says that heroes are those who overcome difficulties. He says that they must believe in themselves. The others agree with Kazami and get into a fighting stance. Sakura says that they have been through this many times before. The boys say that they will never lose. Only Rei remains silent. 10 minutes later, coughing could be heard. Kazami's team thought there was no way they would lose. Shin attacked the boss with his lightning. Rei stood aside at that moment. She didn't expect that they could actually handle the boss. Shin gave Yui the order to restrain the boss with his shield. The boy accepted the command. Shin smiles and points his hand towards the boss. He feels sorry for the boss who couldn't put up a proper fight. He says that it's time for them to end this and uses thunder. Near the monster, the boss screamed. Rei felt something strange. She didn't understand what it was. Shin sighs and says that the boss decided to use her one try. He is convinced that it is already clear who won this battle. Shin freezes as monsters emerge from the ground. There are a huge number of them, and they all go to attack Kazami's team. Shin turns to Sakura and asks what they will do. The girl says that they are nameless knights. All 5 nameless monsters are level 2000. Shin says that it is clear to him that they are enemies. The guy points his hand towards the nameless knights and uses thunder. He has never heard of a couple of monsters appearing with the boss. The thunder attack does no damage to the nameless knights, and they continue to walk forward. Shin smiles nervously and says that the nameless knights are quite durable. He turns to Yuya and Kasuke, demanding that they try to stop them. All the nameless knights headed towards Kazami. The boy was scared because he realized that the monsters were intelligent. They were going to attack their rear. At that moment, Rei summoned her magic sword. Rei strikes the nameless knight in the leg, but he doesn't stop and continues moving straight towards Kazami. The boy manages to dodge the blade at the last second. The guy steps back and asks how the monster dares to touch him. He curses and then launches thunder towards the monster. Rei is happy that she managed to land a blow and stop the nameless knight from attacking Kazami. After Kazami's attack, the monster fell to the ground. He asks his comrades if they saw what just happened. Shin says there are still 4 unnamed knights left. The boy takes down a few more knights with his thunder skill. Shin smiles and says that there is one last enemy left. He says that they need to deal with the last enemy and go defeat the Supreme Orc. Suddenly, the entire team senses something. Shin asks what's going on. Sakura says she doesn't know, but she's sure something bad is going on. She says they need to defeat the High Orc very quickly and get out of the dungeon. Sakura turns around to see where the High Orc is. Her eyes widen in surprise. The monster gets closer to the team. Sakura was shocked that the dungeon was destroyed. The guys couldn't believe it. Right in front of them stood the Supreme Orc, who had become several times stronger. He had a powerful aura. Rei looked at the boss in horror. She realizes that the destruction of the dungeon made the last boss stronger. She assumes that the dungeon collapsed while they were fighting the knights. Rei turns to Sakura and asks what level the High Orc is. The girl says that he is no longer a High Orc. She says that the Orc evolved into an Orc General and his level is now 4,000 units. Rei realized that this was their death sentence as the boss was too strong for their team. Shin couldn't believe that they would have to fight a monster that had a level of 4,000. It was too strong. They had never encountered anything like it before. Everyone looked at the monster with horror. Everyone understood that they would have to bear responsibility for their thoughtless actions. They still did not expect the monster to be so strong. Shin used his abilities to the fullest. He attacked the monster with lightning. The guy cursed because the lightning did not cause much damage to the enemy. The Orc General continued to move towards the guy and grunt. Shin continued to point his hand towards the monster and try to damage it with lightning. He wondered why the monster wasn't getting damaged. The monster didn't feel anything at all. All the other members of the team also tried to damage the monster, but their unique skills did not work. Sakura tried to understand what was happening. She began to evaluate its level and abilities again. Rei couldn't believe that the group's spirit could be so easily broken. Everyone started to panic and said that they couldn't defeat the boss, no matter what they did. They didn't know what to do now that the monster could defeat them all with one blow. To become stronger, the opponents must be proportionally stronger than the adventurers. However, now, the group has lost its spirit. They think that they have no chance of winning because the opponent is too strong. This is their first real fight, which has already begun. They have not thought out a strategy in case the enemy is many times stronger. They would not have gone to fight the boss if they knew that he would become twice as strong. The boss looked straight into Kazami's eyes, and the boy was scared. He didn't expect that their fight with the boss would turn into something like this. The boy hoped that they would be able to defeat the boss and gain glory, honor, and honor. The boy looked at the monster with wide eyes. He didn't want his life to end like this. He thought that his unique ability would not let him lose in a fight with any opponent. The orc general raised his axe to strike. He was going to strike Kazami. The boy asked him not to. The monster looked at the boy with a predatory expression. Kazami continued to look back, but there was horror in his eyes. Shin was stunned into a stupor, unable to react or dodge. He was convinced that this was his end, so he resigned himself to just standing there and waiting for it to end. At that moment, Ray ran up to him and pushed him away. Shin fell to the floor, and the orc's blow hit Ray directly. She was very seriously injured, since the orc general's axe was a very powerful weapon of enormous size. Ray started coughing up blood, and then flew a huge distance, crashing into the wall. She was in a lot of pain, so she hissed. The girl hit her head hard against the wall. Blood was coming out of her mouth. The girl fell to the ground and couldn't move. Her body didn't move, and her health bar was almost at 0. Her health continued to decrease and was already below 10%. Ray looked at the monster, who was grunting loudly. She didn't understand what they should do now. She wondered if this was really the end for her. She looked at her comrades and thought that they would be able to fight back. The monster swung its axe again to strike the adventurers. The girl wanted to shout for her comrades to be careful, but she had no strength, and it was useless, since her comrades also stood in a stupor. One of the guys says that they need to stop the orc general. Sakura asks what the guy is saying, and the other guy asks if he is joking. They all already knew that they lost this battle. Shin uses his lightning skill to its full potential again. He says that this place is very dangerous. He is sure that they will not be able to escape from this room. The guy thinks that this is most likely the end for them. The orc general swings his axe and grunts loudly as he tries to strike Kazami. The axe hits the ground and it cracks. Lightning strikes the axe and causes an explosion followed by smoke. Ray closes her eyes as the dust flies straight into her eyes. The smoke clears and the girl opens her eyes. The girl can't get her bearings for a long time. She can't believe what she sees in front of her. Right in front of her stood the orc general, unharmed by the lightning strikes. Steam was coming off him, but he still stood firmly on his feet, holding his axe in his hands. He looked at his fallen opponents with a predatory expression. When the smoke completely cleared, the girl noticed that her comrades were lying unconscious on the ground. They were still alive, but they had a lot of wounds. They were also running out of life units. The orc general approached the girl. He stared at her. The girl did not know what to do, as she could not move. A second later, footsteps were heard. The monster turned and walked away. Ray saw a nameless knight heading towards her. There was one more they hadn't defeated. The nameless knight raised his sword. The girl's eyes widened as she realized that she was about to be dealt the final blow. Ray couldn't move. She thought that this was probably her end. The girl looked at the gate, realizing that it was still closed. She couldn't escape no matter how much she wanted to. The girl prayed for someone to open the gate and save her. She waited for salvation because she did not want to leave the world of the living at such a young age. She was very scared, so she hoped that someone would come to help. But Ray understood that such a miracle would not happen, because the heroes are only part of the story that is presented in the books. It is all fiction. She is sure that no one will be able to come to her aid. The girl lowered her head and tried to understand where their team had gone wrong. She wanted the King of Uniqueness to answer her. She did not understand why the guild could not help her, because it was made up of people with unique abilities. Ray wondered why she couldn't stop her team. She thought that she should have stayed outside the room or made some other argument to keep them out of the room. Then they would have survived. The nameless knight placed his sword right above the girl's head. She simply looked at the floor, having already resigned herself to her fate. The girl could not move or do anything. Then she began to think that if she were to disappear, at least this gate would be open. In that case, the B-rank group would have to defeat this monster. They would be much stronger than their group, so they would be able to win. The nameless knight raised his sword to strike. The girl closed her eyes at that moment. She thought that at least they wouldn't be the only fools who overestimated themselves. The girl started to wince. She heard the sound of a blow. Ray thought that she had been hit and that she had died. She thought that it would hurt more, but she felt nothing at all. Ray decided to open her eyes and look. She saw that right in front of her, the helmet of the nameless knight had fallen. It was lying at her feet, and it was this helmet that made the sound that made the girl think that her end had come. The girl saw a man in front of her. She was shocked. At that moment, the body of the nameless knight fell to the floor. He was defeated, but the girl could not understand by whom. She slowly raised her gaze upward. Suddenly, the girl heard a familiar voice. Her eyes widened. Right in front of her stood a guy with a sword. He apologized for being late. The girl recognized Rin. The guy turned around and smiled at the girl. He hoped that he would still be able to come to the rescue in time, but on the way he encountered a huge number of monsters that he had to deal with. Rin Amane exchanged information with other adventurers. He was told that the monsters on the surface were exterminated. Rin Amane turns to Yui and says that she will go to Kanzaki's dungeon. He asks if the girl will go with him. Yui smiles and says yes, since she is also an adventurer. The guy is amazed that Yui has helped almost 20 wounded people in the last hour. Considering the girl's level, she has already done more than the norm, even counting the mana potions. The guy thinks that this is expected, since she has already walked through various dungeons. Yui points her hand towards the dungeon and says that she is ready to go. They head towards the dungeon together. A few minutes later, Yui and Rin Amane approach Kanzaki's dungeon, which is surrounded by a huge number of people. They were all very worried. Rin Amane looked at the people and couldn't understand what was going on. The boy sees a man who is a member of the Evening Moon. He understands that the government called a B-rank group to deal with the dungeon. Rin Amane approaches the man from the Evening Moon and attracts his attention. He asks what happened. He says that there is some strange atmosphere. The man explains everything in detail. Rin Amane is amazed. He opens his mouth in surprise and asks what all this means. He does not understand how Kazami and his group could have ended up in the boss's room. The man says that he heard from the group that the doors closed about 10 minutes ago. The boss room can only be entered with the movement skill. He assumes that the Kings of Uniqueness are fighting the boss in this room. The guy wonders if the Kings of Uniqueness could have challenged the boss from the start. Considering the character of Kazami and his comrades, they could have done it for the sake of their popularity. Rin Amane thinks it's stupid, but at the same time it's not impossible. Each of them has unique skills, and also a level above 2000. The guy stops abruptly and looks around. He tries to figure out where Rei is. He can't believe that the girl went into the dungeon. He assumes that her level is not enough. One of the guys says he doesn't know who Rei is. He tells her that he saw 5 people going towards the dungeon. Rin Amane curses and becomes gloomy. He tries to figure out what to do now because, apparently, Kazami drove her there. Screams are heard from the dungeon, and it itself begins to collapse. All the people nearby try to understand what is happening. The man from the Black Moon says that the dungeon is in the final stages of destruction. He says that they don't have time, so they must not hesitate. One of the Evening Moon members says that the boss is coming out soon. He is convinced that they should detain him, but the man stops him and says that it is not that simple. The man says that the longer the boss stands, the stronger he becomes. He is sure that the boss is most likely very strong at the moment. He tries to convince the others that the Uniqueness Kings have most likely lost. Rin Amane looks at the guy in horror. He remembers Rei and cannot believe that she is no longer alive. Rin Amane moves forward and says that he will be back soon. Yui does not have time to stop him, as she does not understand what the guy wanted to do. Rin Amane suddenly made a dash forward and ran into the dungeon. The man shouted after him, asking where the boy was going. Rin Amane was very close to the gate. He knew that it would be quite easy to get inside, but he still couldn't reveal himself. The guy decides to pretend that he entered the dungeon so that no one suspects him of anything. Rin Amane is still running towards the magic door and using his skill, Dungeon Move. People from the Evening Moon are running after him and trying to stop him, but the guy doesn't listen to them and continues moving forward. The skill moving to the dungeon works, and the guy gets inside. He starts to fall. A second later, he already lands. Rin Amane thinks that Kazami's abilities are incredible, so his team should be able to handle it. The guy hopes that everything is fine with them. The guy used his dungeon move skill several times. He finally reached the boss room. Rin Amane was shocked as he saw Rei lying almost unconscious near the wall. At that moment, the boss was trying to attack her. Rin Amane looked around and saw the bodies of the Kings of Uniqueness. He realized that everyone was still alive. He was determined to save them. Rin Amane screams, summoning the nameless sword. A huge sword appears in his hand, and the boy swings it. He strikes the nameless knight with the sword in midair, and he drops his sword. Rin Amane lands on the ground. Rei opens her eyes at this moment and tries to understand what happened. Rin Amane stands up. He turns around and, smiling, apologizes to the girl for coming so late. Ray looks at the guy, but can't say anything. Rin Amane realizes that the girl is in a serious condition. He opens his inventory and takes out a health recovery potion. Rin Amane approaches Ray and leans towards her. He hands the girl a potion and says that it is quite effective. He demands that the girl take it immediately. Rin Amane tells the girl that if her level is below 1,000 units, she can easily restore her health bar. He smiles and says that everything will be fine. Ray starts coughing. She looks at the guy and asks why he came to the dungeon. Rin Amane becomes serious and decides to talk about it later. Rin Amane hands over several glass containers of potions and says that there are things that need to be done at the moment. Ray looks at the potions in confusion. Rin Amane says that once the girl can move, she should give the rest of the defeated adventurers potions to drink. Rin Amane looks at Ray seriously, and then he turns around and looks at the boss who was approaching him. The guy understood that the boss is level 4,000. The guy thinks that the boss is so strong that he wants to run away. Rin Amane raises his sword and says that he can still defeat him no matter what. He says that after the battle with the Nameless Knight, the time has come for the Orc General. The boss grunts and also raises his weapon up. Rin Amane points his sword at the Orc General and challenges him to a fight. He says he will show him how to fight at a lower level. Ray watches the guy in shock. She sees the guy lunge forward. He jumps and flies straight at the Orc General. The boss responds by swinging his weapon to attack the guy. Rin Amane is level 2,773. He had the title of Dungeon Conqueror. He was able to conquer 4 dungeons. The guy also had the title of Nameless Swordsman. Rin Amane dashes forward. He leaps and flies straight at the Orc General. The boss responds by swinging his weapon to attack the guy. The guy strikes with his sword, and the Orc General blocks it with his weapon. The guy strikes a few more times, and then jumps aside. Rin broke. Amane lunges forward again and swings her sword to strike. The Orc General parries the blow and then tries to counterattack the boy. Rin Amane dodges and moves away from his opponent a few meters. He looks at his opponent and thinks that the fight will be very difficult. Rin Amane assesses the enemy and understands that if he misses even one blow, he will not remain alive. Even if he increases his attack range, it will not have any effect. Rin Amane raises his sword and thinks that it gets harder with every dodge. But he has no choice, so he continues to fight. Rin Amane jumps again and strikes the Orc General. He does a hit and dodge. This is the only strategy he can use to win. Ray watches Rin Amane's battle with the Orc General with concern. She approaches her comrades and tries to give them first aid. The girl sees that Rin Amane is still striking. He is determined. The girl hears the ringing of blades hitting each other. Ray blushes. She tries to understand how Rin Amane appeared in the room with the boss. She remembers that the door was definitely closed. Ray reflects on how a week ago he and Rin Amane were on the same level. Now the boy was fighting an enraged boss on equal terms. The girl stops her train of thought as she begins to have suspicions. She remembers Kazami's words about how they had a very weak member on their team. He calls this member by name, and it turns out to be Rin Amane. Kazami talked about how Rin Amane was a terrible adventurer. The guy also called his unique skill dungeon movement. Ray repeated what Kazami had said once again. She began to understand how the boy had managed to end up inside the room with the boss. As the name suggests, you can move freely around the dungeon. You don't even need to enter the boss's door to get to his room. The girl wonders where such a growth rate comes from then. Ray remembers again, but this time the conversation with Rin Amane in which he said that he had to go. The guy looked excited when he said that he had already cleared 1 dungeon the day before, so he had a day off. Ray can't believe it. She thinks that if everything said is true, then Rin Amane has more potential than anyone in this world. The guy can become infinitely stronger. Ray wondered if this was really possible or if it was just her imagination. Ray realizes that she will only know the answer to this question if they can survive this dungeon run. Ray watched the battle between Rin Amane and the Orc General. She folded her arms and asked the boy to win this fight. Rin Amane, after another attack, jumped back a little and decided to catch his breath. He knew that his strength was weaker than that of the Orc General. From all the battles with monsters that were superior in strength, Rin Amane realized that emotions are unnecessary on the battlefield. Rin Amane gets into a fighting stance. He decides that he needs to put his feelings aside, even fear. He looked at the boss, who smiled predatorily and grunted. The guy wanted to defeat him. Rin Amane knew that he needed to fully concentrate on his opponent in order to win this fight. Rin Amane was about to grasp the thin thread of victory. He thought about how the weak put everything on the line to win. But this becomes the worst fear. Having put everything on the line, you can lose everything. Rin Amane once again made a dash forward. He swung his sword and decided that he had to throw everything away. The orc general realizes what the boy should have done. He hits the ground with his weapon, and rocks start flying straight at the boy. Rin Amane starts to dodge the rocks that were flying at him. He had to dodge even the small shards. Getting hit by even one would slow him down considerably. Rin Amane decided to use his skill, enemy search, in such a situation. This skill is used to search for people or monsters. To be precise, it searches by magic power. Each fragment is imbued with this very magical energy, which will help to detect the enemy. The guy can feel the fragments. He rushes through the fragments and finds the orc general. Rin Amane doesn't understand why the orc general is looking at him predatorily and smiling. The guy slows down. At that moment, the orc general throws his axe up and puts his hands in a fist above his head, getting ready to strike the guy. Ray shouts at the guy to be careful. The girl noticed that without the iron axe, the orc general's speed was much higher. She thought that the guy would no longer be able to dodge the blow. But Rin Amane says that he already foresaw this turn of events. He accelerates and bounces. The monster hits the ground straight, shattering it into pieces. Rin Amane used the skill Tempest, which increased his speed by 30%. While the orc general was perplexed, Rin Amane made a dash towards him. He shouted that the monster was now finished. The guy raises his sword and hits the monster on the head. He shouts that this is not all. Rin Amane pulled his sword aside again. His skills, Tempest, and superhuman strength were still active. Of course, his mana was depleted at a rapid rate, but he needed it at this moment. Rin Amane swung his sword to deliver the final blow. He delivered blow after blow right to the monster's head. The boy thought that he still had a little bit left to defeat the monster. Suddenly, the orc general screamed. He threw the boy away from him. Rin Amane landed on the ground. The orc general raised his axe and grunted very loudly. Rin Amane sighed and fell to his knees. The orc general looked at the place where the guy was, but did not see him, so he was dumbfounded. Ray also did not understand where the guy could have run. The guy simply disappeared. Ray had assumed such a course of events. At that moment, Rin Amane appeared behind the guy. He pushed off the wall and headed towards the villain at full speed. The orc general noticed the guy and grunted. Rin Amane shouted that it was all useless. He did a flip and managed to dodge the axe blow. Rin Amane turned around and screamed that this was the end for the monster. He struck the monster and it began to fall backwards. The guy landed on the ground. The monster's head flew off its shoulders and fell to the ground. Rin Amane swung his sword to get rid of the blood. Ray was looking at the guy at that time. She saw the monster's body fall to the ground. Rin Amane was standing next to him. The girl looked at him in shock. Rin Amane put the sword on his shoulders and said that it was all over. He turned to the girl and smiled. Ray blushed. Rin Amane received a message from the system that he had defeated the boss and gained 233 levels. The system also notified the boy that his level had increased by 150 units. He received the title Bringer of the End. Rin Amane received a message from the system that he had defeated the boss and gained 233 levels. The system also notified the boy that his level had increased by 150 units. He received the title Bringer of the End. Rin Amane looked at the girl with a smile. Ray blushed and pressed her hand to her mouth, as she could not believe that the guy defeated the monster. Ray approached the guy and, smiling, thanked him for his help. The guy nodded to the girl. Ray started to say that she was glad that it was over and all her comrades were alive. They were all still lying unconscious on the floor. Rin Amane was also glad. He opened his inventory to put away his weapons since the fight was already over. Rin Amane looked at Kazami, who was unconscious. The guy says that it was predictable since Kazami himself decided to fight the boss. He's glad that the guy at least remained alive. Rin Amane is very angry that Shin Kazami put his entire team in danger by forcing everyone to go into a dungeon and fight a boss. He believes that the guy should pay for his behavior. Ray hangs her head and says that this applies to her too. In the end, she couldn't stop the guy. Rin Amane turned to Ray. He put his hand on her head and began to stroke it. The girl looked up. She wanted to say something but did not dare. As a result, the girl lowered her gaze and blushed. Rin Amane says that for now they should just be glad that they were able to survive. Ray blushes and says that since the guy thinks so, then that's exactly how it will be. Then, the girl suddenly remembers what she wanted to ask about how the guy was able to get into the room. Ray reminds that the gate was closed. The guy becomes suspicious. He looks away and cannot find the words to say anything. Ray becomes serious and says that it's all thanks to the skill, dungeon movement. She asks if it's true. Rin Amane is surprised that the girl knows about his skill. The guy thinks that there is nothing wrong with the girl knowing about his skill. Ray decides to ask another question. The girl points her hand at the guy and asks if she can use the dungeon move skill to go through the dungeon again. Rin Amane is silent for a while and then answers that it is not possible. The girl understands that the guy is lying and says that in that case it is possible. Rin Amane looks worried. He raises his voice and repeats again that you can't rerun dungeons with his dungeon move skill. Ray says that he understands and promises the guy that he won't tell anyone. The girl understands that if everyone finds out how the guy became so strong in a short period of time, then he will definitely have problems. Rin Amane rubs the back of his head and looks away. He notices that it is difficult to hide anything from the girl. He agrees with her and says that he would be happy if the girl did not tell anyone about his skill. Ray smiles and says that she will not betray the man who saved her. She will keep this secret a secret. Rin Amane says that she believes the girl. Ray nods in response. Then they turn to the monster's body. The girl asks what they will do next. Ray wonders how they can explain the victory over the last boss. After all, it wasn't a miracle that he was defeated. The guy looks at the monster thoughtfully. After defeating such bosses, the dungeon collapses, and the return zone disappears. The entire dungeon returns to the surface at the same time. Rin Amane turns to the girl and suggests that she tell him that Kazami and the others lost consciousness and that she dealt with the boss herself. The girl spreads her hands and says that they definitely won't believe that. Ray asks, what if they say that before everyone fell, Kazami shot a huge bolt of lightning and it hit the boss directly, causing a huge explosion? She wonders if they can say that the explosion was enough to defeat everyone. Rin Amane thinks about it and says that it's not a bad idea. Ray says that it's the best outcome that could happen. The girl also remembers that her comrades saw that she couldn't do more damage. Rin Amane thinks about it and finally agrees with the girl, although something still worries him. Because of the story that Ray and Rin Amane came up with, Kazami might get even more carried away. He'll think that their guild is the strongest. Ray then looks around and assumes that everything will be fine. After this battle, Kazami's team should have realized all the horrors of the dungeon. Ray assumes that even if they find themselves in a similar situation again, the girl will stop them. She is determined because she does not want something like this to happen again. She presses her hand to her chest and promises the guy that she will keep an eye on them. Rin Amane smiles and agrees with the girl. He turns and says that it is time to collect the trophies. The guy looked around, trying to find the body of the nameless knight. Rin Amane was wondering if he could get another unnamed sword. Ray says that if the guy is looking for the knight he defeated when entering the boss room, then he disappeared during the boss fight. Rin Amane says that he is very sorry. According to Ray, these nameless knights were very strange. Moreover, their number was large, so it is not surprising that the body of that knight disappeared. Rin Amane approaches the boss's body and tries to get the magic stone with her dagger. The guy says that at least he should collect the magic stones. Rin Amane takes out one magic stone. He says that the purity and size are different from those he has seen before. The guy has never seen such stones. Rin Amane guesses that this magic stone is worth at least 1 million. He hopes that nothing happens to him because of this stone. Rin Amane and Ray sense that it is time to return. All the bodies of the adventurers, so that they are unconscious, are carried outside the room. Ray asks how Rin Amane is going to explain her stay in the dungeon. The guy completely forgot about it. Rin Amane thinks and decides what he will say. He just came to be a hero. Ray looks at the guy questioningly. The next second, they teleport. And so, the cleanup went. Rin Amane was able to defeat the boss. As a result, the dungeon collapsed. And that was the end of it, although not quite. And Ray were scolded by the caretaker and the guild member Yoizuki for not waiting for reinforcements, and for entering the collapsing dungeon. They easily believed the explanation about defeating the last boss. They said that they could call the guy a little later. Nevertheless, they still let him go. Ray says that's exactly how it ended. They were walking down the street with Rin and Yui. Yui says that she was very surprised when the guy rushed into the dungeon. The guy rubs the back of his head and sighs. Yui smiles and says that Rin Amane was so shocked that he even forgot that he couldn't get inside the dungeon. Rin Amane smiles and says that's exactly how it was. He feels awkward about it. Ray pulls the guy by the fabric of his jacket and says that there is nothing shameful about it. The guy turns around and sees that the girl has blushed. He asks what happened. Ray says that she's very glad that Rin came to save her. Yui asks what this means, and Rin Amane points her finger at her mouth to keep the girl quiet. Then Ray thinks and says that it was all in vain. The guy nods, and Yui gets angry as a joke. It seems to her that the guy has become very close to the girl. Yui grabs the guy's hand and blushes. The guy asks what happened. The girl looks intently into Ray's eyes. Ray asks what was that. She asks what's wrong with Yui. The girl says that she won't lose to Ray. The guy looks at Yui in surprise. Rin Amane wonders when the girls started calling each other by their first names. He notices that it's now hard for him to walk. The guy sighed. He suggests the girl to go faster. Ray agrees. Yui cries out joyfully. Rin Amane returns home and looks at his statistics. He is level 356 Seek. He had the title of Dungeon Conqueror. He was able to conquer 4 dungeons. The guy also had the title of Nameless Swordsman and the title of Bringer of the End. Rin Amane looks at the statistics and thinks. He thinks that the title Bringer of the End sounds scary. The guy found out that this title can be obtained if you defeat the last boss alone. He thinks that these are pretty good buffs, but this title has a bug, since technically he did not defeat the boss alone. The guy assumes that this is the only final boss he has fought. He thinks that he will not need it. Rin Amane looks at the title, Dungeon Master, and decides to focus on that. He wonders what will happen when he conquers 10 dungeons. Then he turns his gaze to the skill Dungeon Premises and wonders what awaits him at skill level 20. Rin Amane gets out of bed. He understands that he is getting stronger, but he is still far from the strongest. Rin Amane thinks about the strongest in the world. He understands that this achievement is very high. He can only look at it. But that was before. Now the guy had the strength to go forward, to climb to this peak. He began to understand it. Ever since Rin Amane was saved by an adventurer, the boy wanted to become as strong as he was. Rin Amane faced a huge series of failures and difficulties, but he was able to overcome them all. Right at that moment, Rin Amane raises her fist and vows to become faster and stronger than anyone in the world. In a huge building, an hour after the dungeon was destroyed, a guy from the Yoizuki Guild was sitting in the guildmaster's office. Someone knocked on his office door, and the guy immediately sat up straight. He asked the person who knocked to come in. The visitor apologized for the intrusion and came inside. It was a girl with a snowflake hair clip. The guy asked what happened. Claire said that he needed to be more collected because people looked up to him. He said that she could call her dad if she wanted. Claire asks the guy to draw a line between his personal and workspace. She says she won't call him that. The guy starts crying. Claire shows the report. She reported that they were delayed and the last boss showed up, so they had to deal with it themselves. The girl tells that the group was defeated by another group. The guy says he heard something like that. He's glad it all ended well. He even got worried when he heard someone had broken in. Claire says the Uniqueness Kings were the ones who broke in. She reports that they've already been told off. The guy says that everything is clear to him. He repeats once again that the Kings of Uniqueness have penetrated the dungeon. The girl confirms his words and asks what the guy knows about this. The guy says that he heard about their guild a year ago. He finds it something amazing. The guy talks about the dungeon surge reaching its final stage. He asks if that's true. He didn't think these guilds would have the strength to handle the surge and the boss. He understands that it was a hard-fought victory. The guy suddenly opens his eyes and suddenly asks the girl if Rin Amane was there. He then thinks about it and realizes that this is impossible since Rin Amane left the group. He wonders if it could have been the group's leader, Kazami. Claire says that it wasn't them at all, but Rei Kurosaki, who joined them only recently. Claire suddenly goes into a stupor and asks if the guy really said Rin Amane. The girl tells that, in fact, after the destruction of the dungeon, besides the Kings of Uniqueness and members of their guilds, there was another person who returned from there. His name was Rin Amane. The guy is surprised. He asks if this means that it was Rin Amane who helped defeat the boss. Claire recalls what was said about Rin Amane rushing into the dungeon after the battle had already begun. Claire says that their people confirmed that the gate was closed, so there was no way he could have entered it. The guy thinks that this is common sense. Claire looks at the guy in surprise and asks if he knows Rin Amane. The guy tells that a year ago he invited Rin Amane to their guild, but Rin Amane quickly refused him. The guy was in default, so he was without a card. Rin Amane might have thought that the guy was lying. Claire realizes that Rin Amane was trying to recruit their guild. She asks the guy if Rin Amane is really that good. The guy smirks and says that Rin Amane was actually weak. That's why many people thought the guy was stupid. Claire looks down and asks why the guy was trying to recruit him into the guild then. The guy says it was because of his unique set of skills that showed promise. Then the guy lowers his eyes and, as if thinking, says that what attracted him most was Rin Amane's eyes. Claire asks what that means. The guy says that Rin Amane's appearance is quite ordinary, but his eyes are something completely different. The guy determined from his eyes that Rin Amane is one of those who are ready to do anything for the sake of a goal. He considers him a dangerous person. The guy smiles and says that he has the same eyes as Claire. Claire becomes more gloomy. The guy says that, whatever the case, he should thank the girl for the report. He says that for now, they should be glad that no one was hurt. Claire agrees with him. The girl says that in that case, she will leave the guy. She leaves the office and closes the door. Claire leans her back against the door and lowers her gaze. She thinks about the phrase about the guy having eyes like a girl. Rin Amane had a dream. It was a memory of a few years ago, of precious people and happy times together. It should have continued as it should have, but it was cruelly broken. When Hannah could no longer stand, her older brother was always there to support her. She always felt a sense of gratitude, but at the same time she has a sense of regret. It was already a sunny morning outside. Hannah had just woken up. She sat up in bed and moaned. The girl rubbed the back of her head and blushed. She felt that she had a nostalgic dream, but she could not remember it clearly. The girl looked at her watch and saw that it was 8 in the morning. Hannah got dressed very quickly and ran out of the room as she was late. Rin Amane greeted the girl. The girl greeted her brother. She asked why her brother didn't wake her up. Rin Amane was standing and preparing food. He said that it was rare to see a girl oversleep. He said that he was making toast, and then he asked if the girl would eat it. Hannah agrees. The guy finishes the toast and puts the plate with it right in front of the girl. Hannah is very happy, and the guy just watches her with a smile. Rin Amane approaches the girl and takes her hair in her hands. The girl looks at her brother and asks what he is doing. Rin Amane says that her hair is not tied. He asks the girl to let him braid her ponytail. Hannah blushed. She thought about how much time had passed since Rin Amane braided her hair. At this time, the TV was reporting news related to the recent problems with dungeons and monsters. The news reported that the prefecture was looking for a high-level adventurer to participate in the first attack on the new dungeon. Also, in the dungeon, a B-rank tamer with the skill to use monsters died suspiciously. The girl continued to eat and listen to the news while the guy tied her hair into a ponytail. The TV was announcing that a new Japanese S-rank adventurer had been born. S-rank adventurers are rare. There are only a few dozen in the world. The guy almost tied the girl's ponytail. The news continued to talk about how, in addition to this year the age at which people can register as adventurers has been significantly lowered. When Hannah hears that qualifications are possible from the age of 16, her eyes widen. She closes them and thinks that the time has come to do what she has long since decided to do. Rin Amane finishes tying the girl's ponytail and says that she looks good. Hannah raises her hand and eyes, checking her hair. She turns to her brother and thanks him. The boy nods. Then Hannah jumps up from her seat and runs to the exit as she was late. She shouts to the guy that she went to school. Rin Amane smiles at the end and asks the girl to take care of herself. 3 days after the dungeon collapse, she begins a new day without changes. Rin Amane headed to the Arakawa dungeon, E rank, the lowest level. The guy went through 150 circles. Rin Amane once again cleared the dungeon, and he received a system notification that his level had increased by 2 units. The next time the system reports that the guy has cleared the dungeon a certain number of times and received a bonus reward, the level is increased by 5 units. The system notifies that he will not be rewarded the next time he clears the dungeon. Rin Amane clenches his hand into a fist and rejoices that he was able to clear another dungeon. Rin Amane cleared the 5th dungeon completely. He received the title Crawler Dungeon. Completing a certain number of dungeons gives the player certain benefits. This was the 5th dungeon that Rin Amane cleared. Rin Amane opens the system screen as the moment he has been waiting for has arrived. He decides on which skill to spend 7,010 experience points. The guy sees the skill teleportation dungeon and decides to level it up. He immediately levels up 3 times for 6,000 points. The guy receives several system notifications. His teleportation dungeon skill level has been increased to level 15. The teleportation distance has been changed from 200 meters. The use of mana points has been changed. The guy looked at the characteristics of using the skill Underground Teleportation, level 15. Condition: can only be used in the dungeon. User distance up to 200 meters. The user and everything he carries with him were teleported. Rin Amane was curious about how fast his growth rate was. He wondered if he could expect anything at level 20. The boy clenched his fist and looked up. He thought that in any case, there were only 5 levels left. The guy raises his hand and decides that he will try the next day too. The next day, the guy was very tired and exhausted, as he had cleared all the dungeons he had entered. Therefore, he was unable to do the planned things. The guy sat on the bed and thought that he just needed to go to another dungeon before Kenzaki's dungeon. He tells himself that nothing can be done. He hasn't rested for a long time. The guy received the call from Ray. After 3 days, he got tired of his vacation. He decided to meet her, but before that, he looked at his statistics. Level 3457. Titles: Underground Caterpillar, Nameless Swordsman, and Bearer of the End. He was able to conquer 4 dungeons. Rin Amane met Ray in a cafe. The girl saw the guy and immediately called him. Rin sat down opposite her. Rin Amane apologizes and asks if the girl had been waiting for him for long. She replies that no, she just arrived. The guy remembers the moment with Yui, where he had to answer the same question, and begins to understand how he should have answered then. The girl asked him whether he shouldn't say the opposite at such a moment, to which he answered yes. Ray apologizes for the sudden call. She asks him if the guy is busy. Rin Amane replies that he is not particularly busy. Rin Amane smiles and says that he, like the girl, wanted to get to know her better. The guy actually wanted to check, for example, what happened to Kazami and everyone else. The girl did not expect such words from Rin Amane, so she immediately blushes after his words, and her soul seems to have left her body. She says that she understands everything and also that she is fine. The guy asks if the girl is cold. The guy asks how Ray is doing. She tells him that they decided to disband the Kings of Uniqueness. The guy is surprised by this news. Ray says that Kazami spoke to her a day ago. He apologized for putting the team in danger. He said that he didn't have the qualifications to be a leader, so he decided to disband the team. Rin Amane can't believe that Kazami actually said that. He thought that Kazami would be in good shape after defeating the last boss. The girl confirms her words once again. Rin Amane thinks that Kazami's unique skills are so strong that he has been away from danger for a long time. He feels like that incident in the dungeon was the first time he saw how terrible dungeons can be. Ray also says that the guy started to doubt whether he really defeated the last boss. The guy becomes anxious. He asks what this means. Ray says it's okay. She talks about how the guy eventually accepted it, but still believes it was a pure accident. Rin Amane assumes that Kazami was shocked. Currently, the dungeons have several safe strategies, so it's rare to face real danger. Rin Amane wonders how many more people will get back on their feet after they know how terrible it is. Rin Amane asks if this means that Ray has started going through dungeons alone. He asks if the girl has decided what she will do next. Ray is silent for a moment, then presses her hand to her chest and says that she is going to continue being an adventurer. She even set a new goal. Rin Amane asks what the girl's goal is. Ray blushes and says that she cannot tell since it is a secret. Rin Amane says that she understands everything, and then he asks the girl not to overdo it if anything happens. Ray looks away and nods. Ray and Rin Amane are silent for a while. The guy thought that if it were possible, he would invite Ray to his team. Rin Amane realizes that, unfortunately, this is impossible. Because the underground teleportation cannot transport another person, they both know that Ray will interfere with him. Then Ray remembers something and opens her bag. She is going to give the guy something. Ray lays out envelopes on the table. The guy asks what kind of envelopes these are. He takes the envelopes and examines them. Ray says it's money. She says there are 4.5 million in the envelopes. The guy opens his mouth in surprise and returns the envelopes to the girl. He asks the girl to stop and asks why the girl decided to suddenly give him the envelopes. He says that it is very scary. Ray asks the guy to listen to her. She remembers the day when the guy gave the girl healing potions and asked her to cure the kings of uniqueness with them. She guesses that each potion cost about 1,000,000, so she decided to pay the guy back. Ray told Kazami and the others who used the potion, and in the end, everyone wanted to pay for the potion that was spent on it. Rin Amane says that she understands everything. Ray lowers her head and tells him that she only managed to get half, but she promises the guy that she will return everything else to him. She asks him to wait just a little bit. Ray understands. He says that if that is the reason, then he will accept. He apologizes for trying to reject the girl's help. Ray thanks the guy. Rin Amane says that he feels awkward. Rin Amane and Ray leave the cafe. The girl calls the guy. Rin Amane turns around and asks what the girl wanted to tell him. Ray blushes and then says that if the guy doesn't mind, she would like to go with him to the dungeon. Rin Amane smiles and agrees. He says that her proposal sounds very funny. Rin Amane says goodbye to the girl and says that they will see each other again. The girl smiles back and also says goodbye. They turn around together and go in different directions. Rin Amane thinks that at this point the next dungeon trip will most likely be a long time away. He hopes that sometime in the future he will see her again. When their paths cross, he will wait impatiently. Rin Amane went to the C-rank Demon Wolf dungeon. He fought another opponent. This time, his opponent was a level 3000 Rainbow Wolf. It was a wolf-like monster. Its magical attacks had destructive power. After the dungeon rollback ended, Rin Amane spent 2 days doing hard work visiting 10 new dungeons. He was currently going through the Demon Wolf dungeon. The only way to defeat the dungeon boss is to collect all 9 magic stones. That's how he got the bonus reward, the Demon Wolf ring. Rin Amane thought it was a pretty good ring. It was a bonus reward given for clearing the Demon Wolf dungeon on the first try. It was necessary to defeat the Rainbow Wolf King. His recommended level was 3000. Leveling up was in full swing. Rin Amane conquered the Demon Wolf dungeon. Along with moving into the dungeon, he strengthened Superhuman Power and Storm. Now they were 1 level higher. He became level 5154, conquered 6 dungeons. Rin Amane was happy that he had conquered the dungeon. He decided to continue leveling up the next day. The next day, Rin Amane was full of energy. He was sitting at the table with Hannah. They were having breakfast, toasts were lying in front of them on plates. The girl looked at him and asked if the guy was free on the weekend. At the same time, it was clear from her that she had something in mind. Rin Amane says that he should be free by then. Hannah smiles and asks him to prepare some more comfortable clothes. The guy looks at the girl in bewilderment, but agrees. Rin Amane tries to understand if they want to force him to go shopping and wear all the clothes that Hannah chooses. Then he thinks about how sometimes it's nice to just walk around and relax. He imagines them walking together and looking at shop windows. The weekend came and Hannah brought the guy to the E-rank Shimafuku dungeon. The guy was dumbfounded. He asked why the girl brought him to the dungeon. Hannah was scared. She asked the guy not to shout so loudly. Rin Amane turns to the girl and asks her if they should go shopping. Hannah thinks about it and wonders if she didn't explain her plans to the guy. She decided to tell about the situation with the dungeons first. The minimum age for entry is 18 years. But recently, adventurers have begun to exert a huge influence on the authorities. For this reason, the minimum age for entry was 17 years. But from this year, in accordance with world standards, the minimum age for entry was 16 years. Once you cross the age limit, all that remains is to undergo training in the Adventurers Association. Then you can become a qualified adventurer. She had to take courses separately from school. Now she can do it together with school. Rin Amane begins to understand why Hannah decided to go underground. Hannah says that those who went through the school have already completed the courses and received the preliminary qualifications. Hannah says that they should go to the dungeon under the guidance of the Adventurers Association members. If desired, they could take one friend with them to back them up in the dungeon. Rin Amane says that everything is clear to him. He asks to tell the girl what she would do if the guy had a kickback. Hannah thinks about it and asks what a rollback is. Rin Amane wonders if Hannah really completed the course. Hannah pulls the guy behind her to the entrance to the dungeon and says that everyone is already gathered, so they need to hurry. The guy agrees and runs ahead after the girl. Inside the dungeon, a large number of teenagers have gathered. Rin Amane says that quite a large number of people have gathered. Hannah says the association is recruiting people from many schools to take part in a trial entry. She says they need to sign their names. One of the event organizers shouts to everyone that if a person is a parent or guardian, then he needs to prove his status. Level and name will be enough. Rin Amane feels anxious and curses. Hannah asks if everything is okay with the guy. He answers that everything is fine. In this case, the girl suggests that the guy go further. Rin Amane becomes uncomfortable. Kazami and his group, having raised their level to over 2,000, caused a lot of noise. Rin Amane wonders what will happen if the Adventurer Association finds out that his level has already exceeded 5,000. In the worst case, the secret of the guy's movement will be revealed. He wonders if there is a way to fake the level. The guy stops Hannah and asks her to wait for a while. He decides to open the status window. He needed to look at the list of skills. The girl said she would wait for the guy. He started looking at the list of his new skills. The guy saw that 5,000 points were required to increase the level of the camouflage skill. Hiding advanced skills. All this skill can do is overwrite the information in the status window. But it is abused to a large extent. Infiltrate low-level groups and loot their items. Also, some get into high-level groups and parasitize there. For this reason, this skill is basically prohibited from being acquired. But it is impossible to know whether a person has the skill or not. And even if they do, they cannot be accused of any crime. Maybe it is needed to bypass unnecessary obstacles. Rin Amane has acquired a skill. He was lucky that he still had a lot of skill level points left after his last visit. The guy runs his finger across the system window. Now he could rewrite his level. At that moment, Hannah was looking at him. She asked if Rin Amane was ready. The guy answered that they could go now. They walked up to the entrance of the dungeon together. They were met by one of the organizers. He asked if Hannah and Rin were participating. The man gave his name, Katagiri. He said that he worked for the Adventurers Association. He asked what the guys' names were. Anna said hello and gave her name. She also introduced her brother. She told him that the guy had come to accompany her. Katagiri comes closer and asks if he can see the status. Rin Amane answers yes and shows the status in the system window. He was level 1034. Katagiri smiled and thanked the boy for his cooperation. He explains that they will be entering a B-rank dungeon. He says that with that level, the boy will most likely not have a problem. Katagiri assures that even if something happens, his level is 7,000, so he will be able to protect everyone. The guy says that this is encouraging. Katagiri also tells that, in addition to him, the association has attracted young people of C rank and above. He convinces the guys that only the best of the best will be with them. He notices one of the adventurers. The man asks Yanagi to come to them. Yanagi obeys and approaches. He asks what happened. Katagiri tells the guy that he just wanted to introduce him to the guys. The man explains that Yanagi is a new employee who just graduated from university. However, he is level 5,000. And this time, he will also enter the dungeon with everyone else. Yanagi introduces himself and says that he is looking forward to working with Rin Amane and Hana. Rin Amane extends her hand to shake and says that the feeling is mutual. Yanagi squeezes the guy's hand tightly and looks at him intently, thinking about something. Rin Amane asks if something is wrong. Yanagi raises his hands and says that everything is fine. Rin Amane becomes curious about what just happened. Rin Amane hears someone's voice calling for attention, announcing that a dungeon takeover is about to begin. Hannah changes her clothes and asks her brother to evaluate her costume. She says that this is equipment provided by the association. The girl tells that the association prepared clothes for each of them during the courses. Rin Amane looks at the suit and thinks that it's time for him to retire. In his time, this was not the case. He was even somewhat envious. The guy changed his suit with the help of inventory. Katagiri informed everyone that it was time for them to enter the dungeon. The man asked everyone to line up and follow him. Rin Amane remembered that this dungeon was one of the ones he visited the other day. As he passed through the gate, he quickly used the skill Dungeon Move and entered without anyone noticing. Katagiri got everyone's attention and said that it was time to gain status. He tells them that the status can be gained by defeating a monster for the first time. The probability of getting it is 10%. Among the whole crowd of future adventurers, some were scared, some were determined, and some were praying, hoping to get a unique skill. Rin Amane noticed the excitement and understood that it was not unfounded. These few minutes could turn your whole life upside down. Rin Amane saw that his sister was worried, so he put his hand on hers to calm her down. The girl turned to her brother and asked what he was doing. Rin Amane said that there was no need to be so nervous. He said that getting the status depends on luck. Rin Amane stops and thinks about what he just said. He thinks that his words might actually ruin his motivation. The girl laughs. She covers her mouth with her hand and says that if the guy wants to support her, then it would be better for him to keep quiet. Rin Amane apologizes. The girl says that she feels better now. She thanks the guy. Suddenly, Rin Amane wonders why Hana decided to become an adventurer. She hadn't mentioned it before. At this time, Katagiri gave the command to everyone to gather in teams of 3 and come to him one by one. He would take turns helping everyone defeat the monsters. Katagiri said that if the trainees came with companions of D rank or higher, he or she could accompany them. All those who had received the status were to approach Katagiri and report it. Rin Amane thinks about the fact that they have a choice. He turns to Hana and asks what she will choose and what she is going to do. Hana replies that she does not like it when everyone looks at her. She suggests that they go alone. The guy and Hana headed further into the dungeon. On the way, they saw something strange and came closer. Hana asks what kind of creature it is, and the guy replies that it looks like the famous slime. Rin Amane opens the system and looks at the creature's characteristics. It was indeed a level 1 slime. It is a monster with a liquid, transparent body. It can be defeated by destroying the core in the center. Even Hana should be able to handle it. Rin Amane points to the red sphere that was in the center of the slime. He explains that this core of the slime is a magic stone. The guy says that it must be destroyed in order to win. Hana becomes more serious. She takes out her weapon and approaches the slime, intending to defeat it. She points the dagger towards the slime and says that she will do it. Hana runs right into the core of the slime and pops it. She opens her eyes and asks if the creature won. The girl then widens her eyes and blushes. She wonders if she really managed to get the status. She was talking about how she needed to level up to get points. Hana turns to her brother and says that she hears strange sounds in her head. Rin Amane shows the girl perfectly and says that she seems to have succeeded. He congratulates his sister. Hana blushes even more, realizing that she has succeeded. She was able to get the status without any problems. She starts jumping for joy and waving her hand, shouting about what she has succeeded. Rin Amane looked at the girl in bewilderment. He was happy for her, but it was hard for him to look at something like this. Rin Amane says it's time to get to the hard part. He says the skills a girl learns will decide her future. Hana agrees and tries to remember how skills work. Rin Amane prompts and tells the girl to open the status window. The girl screams sharply and does as her brother says. She turns around and is amazed that something has appeared right in front of her. She asks her brother to look. Rin Amane praises his sister and offers to see what skills the girl has. He comes closer and sees strengthening the body. Then he sees other skills and is amazed. Rin Amane sees that the girl was level 2. She had 15 units of health. Mana in the amount of 5 units. Attack power, speed, endurance were equal to 3 units each. Intelligence is equal to 5 units. The girl also had resistance equal to 3 units, and luck with the same indicators. The girl had the following skills: imitation of skills, level 1, strengthening skills, level 3, magic manipulation, level 3, increase magic power, level 5. Rin Amane sees that the girl has quite a lot of skills. In addition, he tried to understand the essence of the skill imitation. The girl noticed her brother's confusion. She asked what it meant. The guy said that it was a unique skill of the girl. Hana asked what happened. The girl noticed her brother's confusion. She asked what it meant. The guy said that it was a unique skill of the girl. Hana asked what happened. Hana asks if this is really a skill that no one else has. She wonders if it's good. She says they need to test the skill. Rin Amane looks at the skill's characteristics with Hana. Conditions: touch the subject. This skill imitates the touch subject skill of 1 or lower. Number of imitations: no more than 1. Imitation time: no more than 10 minutes. Rin Amane was confused. He thought that it was a pretty good and useful skill, but he couldn't figure out how it worked. The girl also had a lot of questions about her skill. Copies and the usage time should increase with the level. Moreover, there does not seem to be a significant difference in copying skills between high and low-level targets. If it came to this, then usually, advanced skills are received at a level above 1,000, and Hana will be able to use them at a level below 100. The guy is even afraid to think about such a thing. In addition, when forming a group, depending on the situation, An adventurer can become a swordsman, a mage, or a tank. And that's not all. Maybe Hannah can copy the movement in the dungeon, then she can clear it with him. At the moment, the girl will not be able to copy the guy's skill due to the level limitation, but this will be possible in the future. The girl turns to her brother and says that she still doesn't understand whether her skill is good or bad. Rin Amane replies that the girl has a good skill. He explains to her that if she tells about this, all the guilds in Japan will try to recruit her. The girl cannot believe it. She asks if it is true. Hannah says she's lucky to have the skill, but she doesn't want to go through the trouble. Rin Amane asks if that's what she wanted to do to become an adventurer. He asks why she even did that. Hannah blushes and says it's a secret. She says that Rin is acting like a bad brother and that he shouldn't interfere in other people's private lives. The guy says that he won't do anything like that anymore. Then, Rin Amane thinks about it and decides that it is better to hide the information about her sister's skill from Yanagi and Katagiri. Because of them, it will be known everywhere. Hannah asks if they can hide this information. She says they'll still have to show the status window. Rin Amane thinks about it and says that he has thought of something. He says that there is one way out. He will experiment with imitation of the skill. Rin Amane is not talking about a long-acquired skill. The girl turns to the boy and asks if she should copy the boy's skill. She says that in that case, she will just touch it. The boy offers to try. Hannah touches her brother and uses her skill. She thinks she managed to copy the skill. Rin Amane praises his sister for what she did. He opens the system screen and shows what needs to be done to hide her skill. He asks if the girl understands. Rin Amane says that only a few skills will remain. They are all quite high level. He wonders if these skills really appeared at level 1. Hannah gives a positive answer and says that she has a good first level. Rin Amane suggests going back. He looks at the girl and, pointing his finger at her mouth, says that they should keep the disguise a secret. The girl smiles and says that she understands everything. Hannah turns to the guy and asks where he got this skill from. He promises to tell her about it sometime later. Hannah points towards the exit and says that since everything is fine, it's time for them to move out. They come back and are surprised. The guy looks around and doesn't find anyone. He tries to understand what's going on and where everyone has gone. Hannah pressed her hand to her chest and asked Rin what happened. Then the guy finally saw familiar people and moved forward. There were novice adventurers standing there who were happy that they had managed to defeat the monster. There were also those who were upset because they had not received a unique skill. One of the organizers shows with his hand where those who received the status window should stand. Hannah walked up to Katagiri. The man smiled and congratulated her on her new status when he saw the window open in front of him. Then everyone started to come out of the dungeon. Rin Amane told her sister that the confirmation ended rather quickly. The girl agrees with her brother. Katagiri says that everyone who has received the status must participate in a raid on another dungeon in 2 weeks. Katagiri says that until new adventurers have completed all the procedures, they should only go into the dungeon accompanied by another adventurer who has been an adventurer for at least 1 year. Katagiri urges everyone not to enter the dungeon alone. He thanks everyone for their work. Rin Amane and Hannah are heading home. The guy says that the girl tried hard. He congratulates her again on receiving the status. Hannah happily thanked the guy and laughed. She says that she would like to receive something as a reward. Rin Amane suggests going for a walk around the shops and then having dinner somewhere. The girl was perplexed. Hannah blushed and said she was just joking. She asks if the guy has enough money. Rin Amane smiles and tells the girl not to worry. Rin Amane winks and says that he has been making a lot of money these days. He can afford to refuse nothing. He says that his sister can take whatever she wants. Hannah blushes and smiles. She says that if that's the case, she'll believe the guy. They go to the store together. Rin Amane approached Hannah and said that if she was going to the dungeon before the scheduled raid, he could go with her. Hannah asked if this was true. She decided to announce it right away. The guy then turns away from the girl's phone screen as he realizes that he is once again violating her personal boundaries and privacy. At this time, they were unaware that they were being watched. The next day, Rin Amane went to the dungeon. The guy received a system notification, which said that for capturing the dungeon, his level was increased by 4 units. Rin Amane was in the D-rank Minagishi dungeon. He had an appointment with Hannah in the afternoon, so he decided to go to the dungeon in the morning. The guy received a few more system notifications, which stated that for capturing the dungeon, his level had been increased by 4 units. The guy defeated all the opponents and stopped to catch his breath and rest. He managed to make 100 circles. In total, he raised 410 levels and cleared only 7 dungeons. Rin Amane looked at his watch and realized that it was time for him to go as the time was approaching. Rin Amane reached Xian's E-rank dungeon very quickly, but he was still late. The guy approached Hana and apologized for being late. He noticed that the girl was standing in the company of Yui and Rei. The guy didn't expect to see Rei and Yui near this dungeon. He asks what they are doing in this place. Yui greets the guy and says she thought Hana and Rin would need help. Rei agrees with Yui but looks unimpressed. Rin Amane says that's not what he wanted to hear. Rei points at his brother and sighs, reminding him that they don't have much time to talk. Rin Amane apologizes and, pointing her hand at the girls, asks why they are near this dungeon. Hana raises her index finger up and tells that she invited Yui a day ago because she always asks about a guy when she writes. Since it's such a big deal, she decided to call the girls for help. Yui blushes and starts shaking her head from side to side. She asks why Hana is telling all this, and then asks Rin not to take everything to heart. The guy agrees. Yui turns to the guy and says that she won't mind if the guy believes his sister a little. Rin Amane still can't understand what the girl is talking about. Rin Amane then turns to Rei and asks how she got into this company if she doesn't know Hana. Rei says that she heard about it from Yui, so she decided to come too. The girl told her that Rin would come. Rin Amane thinks that the reason Rei is near the dungeon is because of him. He blushes and is happy that he is finally becoming a popular guy. Rei hands the envelope to the boy and says that, as promised, she will return the rest of the money. Rin Amane stands for a while in bewilderment. Rei says that she worked hard for weeks and earned quite a lot. She wanted to give the boy the rest. Hana is horrified. She asks if Rin Amane really forced Rei to pay him. Yui also says that it is terrible. She is disappointed in the guy. The guy tries to stop the girls and says that everything is not at all as they thought. Rin Amane asks Rei to say something. The girl looked very serious. She said that she understood everything. Rei says that Rin is an important person to her. She adds that it is only because of him that she can stand next to Hana and Yui. She says that giving him money is something she loves to do, but she worries if it is enough. Hana and Yui scream. They demand an explanation from the guy. Rin Amane says that Rei is missing important moments. Because of this, the situation is getting worse. Rin Amane tells everything as it really was. Hana is happy and says that this is exactly where it should have started. Rin Amane tried to explain, but the girls didn't listen to him. Yui says she didn't doubt him. A guy comes up to a girl and starts pulling at the edges of her mouth. He asks how she dares to say such things with her mouth. The girl says it hurts. Rei approaches the guy and apologizes. She says that she should have chosen a better place to give the money. Rin Amane smiles and reassures the girl that everything is fine. He asks how the girl managed to earn so much money in such a short time. Rei presses her hand to her chest and says that she has been hunting high-paying monsters all week. She wanted to see herself from the outside. Rin Amane says that he understands everything. Rin Amane smiles and asks Rei to do her best. Rei smiles back and thanks the guy. Yui was already thinking that Rin and Rei get along well with each other, especially since Rei is not so talkative. She only talks and smiles with him. Yui's eyes widen and she blushes even more. She assumes that Rin and Rei are in a relationship. Rin Amane has a sense of déjà vu. Rin Amane asks if it's not normal for friends to talk like that. He sighs and reminds the girl that he talks to her in exactly the same way. Yui turns away, embarrassed, and agrees with the guy. She admits that others may misunderstand. The guy decides to leave everything as is. Rin Amane says that since they are all gathered, they can enter the dungeon. Rei suggests that they work productively. Rin Amane approaches Hana and reminds her that Yui and Rai are with them, so she shouldn't use her skill imitation skill. Hana convinces him that she will use it since her brother is with her. Rin Amane asks if the girl is sure. He understands why the girl trusts Yui, and then asks what about Rei. Hana says that since her brother is leaving the decision to her, she will still ask him if he trusts Rei. The guy nods. Hana smiles and says that then she will trust the girl. Rin Amane looks at his sister in shock. He didn't suspect that she trusted him so much, and he still hasn't explained to her the value of the skill dungeon movement. Rin Amane thinks that it is not yet time to talk about something like this. If he reveals information about it, it will not only be a threat to him, All of their loved ones could become targets. In the worst case, even Hana will suffer. Rin Amane decides that he needs to protect Hana. He needs to be a reliable support for her. He would tell her about it, but the time has not come yet. Hana caught her brother's attention because he was again thinking about something for a very long time. The guy apologized and said that he was lost in thought. He suggests trying to test the skill imitation. He says that he will explain everything to Yui and Rei first. The guy explained in detail how the skill imitation that Hana possessed worked. They were surprised. Rei began to think that this was a great skill. She didn't expect anything else from Rin's sister. The guy doesn't understand what kind of logic the girl has. Yui sighs and then happily says that Hana's unique skill is amazing. She says that Rei has something similar. She finds it amazing that there are two people with unique skills on their team. Yui turns to Rin Amane and says that only they have normal skills. She is sure that they are similar in some way. Everyone stands and looks at Yui in surprise. The girl begins to understand what she said and becomes embarrassed. Yui screams throughout the dungeon. She approaches the guy and says that she hasn't heard that Rin Amane has a unique skill. She asks the guy why he betrayed her. Hana heard that it's a useless and slow skill. Yui still holds the guy by the collar of his jacket and says that she believed in the guy. She hopes that their relationship will remain warm as before. She asks if she is right. Hana approaches Rei and asks if she has a unique skill. Rei gives a positive answer and is about to show off her skill. Rei spreads her arms and uses her skill, Magic Sword. Everyone turns to look at the girl's skill. Everyone looks at her in amazement. Rei creates 4 swords of different elements. These same swords appear near her. The first one is fire, the second sparkles with lightning, the third is shrouded in cold, and the fourth is blown by the wind. Rei says that this is how she creates new swords. As the swords hover in the air near Rei, she talks about how she can create any sword she imagines. Hana is amazed and says that it is really amazing. Rin Amane smiles and says that it looks great. Yui is touched and says that it is very cute. Rei puts away his swords and asks Rin Amane what they will do now. The guy remembers why they came to the dungeon and says that he wanted to test the skill imitation. Rin Amane thinks that an attack skill would be great for the experiment, but Hana can only copy level 1 skills for now. His only level 1 skill is camouflage. Luckily, Rin has Yui and Rei by his side. Rin Amane smiles and thinks that the girl was able to organize all this without even realizing it. He thinks his sister is a genius. Hana looks at the guy with a question. Rin Amane spreads her arms out to the sides and says that, if possible, the girl should let Hana copy one of the first-level attack skills. The girls first look at the guy in bewilderment, then look at each other and close their eyes, smiling. Yui smiles and says that she doesn't have a single offensive skill. Rei apologizes and says that all her skills are level 2 and above. Rin Amane becomes gloomy. He decides to take back his words. Rin Amane is thinking about what to do now. At this time, Yui opens the system behind him. She remembers that she was going to level up elementary magic first level. She is happy that she increased the skill level. Rin Amane approaches the girl and says that it was not worth pumping up her skill for this. The girl says that there is nothing wrong with it. She talks about how the elders in the guild advised her to prepare something for self-defense and attack. The girl winks at the guy and says that he doesn't have to worry since she recently leveled up to level 150. Rin Amane is amazed. He remembers that the girl was only level 80. The girl is happy and says that the Evening Moon Guild is simply wonderful. It was there that she was taught a fast and effective way to level up. Yui remembers something and asks Rin to listen to her. She tells him that there is a really cool senior in the guild, with whom they have a 2-year age difference. She learned a lot from him. She asks what the guy will say about this. Rin Amane is silent for a moment, then tilts her head and asks if that's okay, smiling. Yut gets angry, turns around and says she doesn't know the guy anymore. Rin Amane smiles and says that, in any case, he is glad that the girl has mastered elementary magic. He thanks Yui. The girl becomes embarrassed and calms down. She says that the feeling of gratitude is pleasant, so she will accept it. Rin Amane says that it's time for them to start experimenting. Hana says that if that happens, she'll touch Yui. Yui asks the girl to hold on to her. Yui extends her hand to the girl. Hana touches her hand and uses the skill imitation. Hana says she did it. The girl wants to see the difference between using the skills of 2 different people. At this moment, the company begins to be surrounded by small wolves of the 5th level. Rin Amane says that the wolves came just in time. He says that Yui can start attacking them. Yui is happy and asks that the opponents be left to her. The girl puts her hand forward and summons a fireball. She sends it straight at one of the wolves. Hana and Rin Amane are amazed at the girl's strength. Rin Amane turns to her sister and says that it is her turn. He asks if the girl is ready. Anna answers yes. The girl puts her hand forward and asks if he is doing everything right. She summons a fireball and sends it towards the wolf, but it turns out to be smaller in size than Yui's. The fireball does not cause much damage to the wolf, so the predator runs to attack the girl. Hana gets scared and screams. At this time, Rin Amane makes a dash and appears right in front of the girl. He strikes the wolf and it flies away. The guy for his help. Everything became clear to the guy. He says that, apparently, the imitation of Hana's skills cannot fully reproduce the original strength of the skill. The power of magic is determined by the level and intelligence of the caster. It is natural that the power of Hana's magic is inferior because her level is low. Rin Amane says that even though she has a unique skill, she can't reproduce a high-level mage. Hana asks if her skill is really weak. Rin Amane says that for this reason, the girl has feedback. The power of Hana's skills will increase proportionally to her level. In the end, it all depends on how the girl uses it. Hana says she understands everything. She smiles and says that in that case she needs to try really hard. The guy winks at the girl and says that she understood everything correctly. Rin Amane promises the girl that he will teach her all the basics of adventurers in real combat. The girl is happy. Yui reports that a pack of wolves is gathering around them again. Rei says she will go ahead. Hana goes ahead and says she will help them. Looking at the girls' team, Rin Amane sees that Rei is a mid to close range fighter, Yui is a long range support, and Hana is good at both. Surprisingly, it's a well-balanced team. Rin Amane thinks that the team only needs to add a vanguard, and then it would be a very strong team. But in practice, this is impossible. The difference between levels is too big, and Yui is in the guild. It's just his fantasy. After that, the whole team spent most of the time in the dungeon. And that was the end of their busy day. Rin Amane was going through the dungeons again the next day. After a week, he finally reached the C-rank Niimi dungeon. The guy was on the lower floors. Rin received a notification from the system that he had captured the dungeon the maximum number of times. He received a level-up bonus of 25 units. The system notified him that the next time he captured a dungeon, he would not receive any rewards. Rin Amane sighed and then shouted in joy. He was glad that he had succeeded. He was able to conquer 10 dungeons and obtain the title of Dungeon Conqueror. Rin Amane waited for the system to give him bonuses. He wondered what it could be, an increase in the effects of titles or a new skill. If Rin Amane didn't have the skill Dungeon Movement, it would be extremely difficult to complete such a task. He thought that he should get something good. The guy receives confirmation of the title, Dungeon Conqueror. The system notifies the guy that, as a bonus, he will receive the right to challenge an additional dungeon, Magic Isolated Tower. Rin Amane didn't understand what kind of reward this was. The system announced that the target's current status had been entered. The target would not be able to level up until he challenges the Magic Isolated Tower. The system reported that the internal structure of the Magic Isolated Tower has changed in accordance with the target's status. Suddenly, an earthquake occurs. The system notifies that the creation of the Magic Isolated Tower has been completed. A leaf falls from the ceiling. The guy picks it up and sees that it is a ticket for testing the Magical Isolated Tower. Rin Amane didn't understand what was happening. He doubted for a while, and then he realized that he would have to challenge. Rin Amane decides to go home for a while. He climbs the stairs and thinks about what to do now. When he comes out of the dungeon, he sees people who are looking at something. The guy raises his head and sees a huge tower. Everyone was excited by the appearance of a huge tower. People assumed that this was a new dungeon. Rin Amane was the only one in the world who knew that this was the Magical Isolated Tower. That's why he got a ticket and decided to challenge the dungeon.